Hey guys, it's Nemo here again. Just want to say thanks for tuning in as always. Enjoy these new 20 dating app horror stories. Now, let us know in the comments what you thought, which one was your favourite, and let's interact. Let me know where you're listening from. Smash that like button if you enjoy the stories as always, and if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Now, let's listen to some stories.
I almost didn't go out that night, and that still messes with me more than anything else. I was half dressed, scrolling, bored, thumb sore, telling myself I would delete the app again in the morning. Then her profile popped up. Nothing flashy. No overdone filters. Just normal pics that felt recent, like she wasn't hiding behind 10-year-old angles. She looked real. I liked that. I swiped without thinking and tossed my phone on the bed. 10 seconds later, it buzzed. Match. The messages were fast, casual, kind of messy in a way that felt human. No corny lines, no forced jokes. Just two people killing time on a weekday night. She suggested drinks first. Not coffee, not a walk. Drinks. That felt bold enough that I said yes before my brain could catch up. We picked a bar I barely knew on the edge of downtown, the kind of place that still smells like cleaning spray and old wood. I showed up early and took a seat near the back. The lighting was low and warm, like it was trying to hide something. I checked my phone a few times. When she walked in, I recognized her instantly. Same face, same hair, same jacket from one of her photos. She smiled when she saw me and came over. It felt normal, almost too normal. We ordered drinks and sat there for a while. Time moved in that weird stretchy way where nothing feels rushed but suddenly an hour is gone. I remember thinking how easy it was, how there were no awkward gaps, how she paid attention in this intense way that made me feel sharper, like I was doing better than usual just by existing. She asked about my work, my place, the area I live in. I answered everything without hesitation. At some point, she asked if she could take a picture. Just something casual, she said earlier, like a memory of the night. I didn't think much of it. People do that. I leaned back, tried to look relaxed, felt a little stupid. She took a couple shots, checked them, smiled, put her phone away. Nothing weird. After the second drink, I went to the bathroom. The hallway was narrow and darker than the rest of the bar. The mirror above the sink was cracked on one side, splitting my face in half. I remember thinking I looked tired. Older, I pulled out my phone without thinking, just habit, and opened Tinder. Her profile was at the top of my messages. The green dot was there. Active now. That alone was enough to freak me out. People forget to close apps. I almost put my phone away. Then curiosity hit, sharp and sudden. I tapped her profile. The first photo loaded slow. It was me. Not a selfie. Not something from my account. Me sitting at the bar. Same jacket. Same lighting. Same angle. My drink half full in front of me. My face turned slightly like I had been caught mid-thought. My stomach dropped so fast it felt physical. I scrolled. Second photo. Me again. Closer this time. Same night. Same table. Third photo. A different angle. All taken while I sat there smiling like an idiot, thinking I was on a normal date. My name was there. Her bio was short and blank. The distance said less than 1 mile. Active now. I stared at the screen way too long. My hands started sweating. I locked my phone. Unlocked it again, checked. Same thing. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't hear the music anymore. Just a fan buzzing above me and my own breathing sounding wrong. I walked back to the table trying to act normal. She was already on her phone, scrolling, smiling to herself. She glanced up when I sat down and asked with her eyes if everything was okay. I nodded. I couldn't think straight enough to do anything else. The rest of the night blurred in a bad way. I noticed things I had ignored before. How she angled her phone toward me sometimes. How she watched reflections in the mirror behind the bar more than my face. How she asked if I had roommates, if my place was quiet, if anyone would notice if I didn't come home. I finished my drink fast and said I was tired. She didn't push back, just nodded like she had expected it. We stood up. She hugged me, quick and light. I felt her phone press against my side. The screen was warm. Outside, the air was cold and smelled like wet pavement. She walked the opposite direction. Didn't look back. I stood there for a full minute before moving. On the walk home, I kept checking Tinder. Her profile kept updating. New photos, different ones. Still me. Walking, sitting, laughing. Angles I didn't remember seeing her take. Captions empty. Location changing by blocks. When I got to my apartment, I locked the door and stood there listening. Nothing. I didn't sleep much. Every sound felt loud. Every notification made my heart jump. The next morning, I opened the app again. Her profile was gone, unmatched, erased like it never existed. But that wasn't the worst part. Later that day, I got a notification, new match. The profile picture was me standing in the bar bathroom, half turned toward the cracked mirror, phone in my hand. The caption said active now, less than 1 mile away. I didn't swipe. I deleted the app. I sat on my bed staring at the wall until it got dark. Sometimes when I walk past that bar, I feel my phone buzz even when it doesn't. Sometimes I catch my reflection in windows and wonder if someone else is seeing it too from the other side of a screen. The night started with that buzzing feeling I get when I know I should stay home but don't. My room felt too quiet, my phone too loud, and Tinder kept throwing faces at me like it was daring me to pick one. I had promised myself I would chill for a week, but then his profile showed up. Nothing dramatic. Just a guy who looked clean, normal, like he blended into crowds. I swiped without overthinking it, which is usually how I end up in trouble. We talked for a few days. Not nonstop, but enough that his name started to feel familiar when it popped up. He asked a lot of questions, but they felt casual. Favorite snacks, worst jobs, dumb stories from school. He paid attention in a way that made me feel interesting instead of interviewed. When he asked to meet, I suggested a late coffee place near the bus loop. Public, bright, people around. He agreed instantly. I told myself I was being smart. I told my friend where I was going. I picked an outfit that didn't feel like trying too hard. The place was loud and smelled like burnt espresso and sugar. When he walked in, I recognized him right away. Same hoodie, same hair, same half smile. He hugged me like we already knew each other. I didn't pull away. We sat by the window. Buses hissed outside every few minutes. Everything felt fine at first. Too fine. He laughed at the right parts, leaned in when I talked, remembered things I had mentioned days earlier. It felt easy, like slipping into a routine that already existed. That should have been my first warning. Halfway through, I noticed he kept glancing outside, not in a distracted way, more like he was tracking something. Every time someone walked past, his eyes flicked up. When I asked about it, he shrugged and said he liked watching people. I laughed it off, even though it made my skin feel tight. After an hour, I said I was heading out. It was late and I had class early. He stood up right away and grabbed his jacket. He said he would walk with me. I said no, not in a rude way, just casual. I liked walking alone, I said. I wasn't far. He smiled, not wide, not friendly, just small. And then he said it, calm and easy, like it was nothing. He already knew where I live. The words didn't hit all at once. They kind of slid into my brain and sat there wrong. I laughed again, because that's what I do when something scares me. I told him that wasn't funny. He didn't laugh back. He just looked at me like he was waiting for me to catch up. Outside, the air was cold and damp. The street lights made everything yellow. I started walking fast, my bag tight against my side. I could feel him behind me for the first block, matching my pace. I didn't turn around. I didn't want to confirm it. After a minute, his footsteps stopped. Relief washed over me so hard my knees felt weak. I crossed the street anyway, just in case. Then another street. I took a longer route than usual, looping past a closed grocery store and a row of dark townhouses. Halfway home, my phone buzzed. Tinder notification. Him. I didn't open it. I shoved my phone in my pocket and kept walking. My building came into view and my heart started racing again, because what if he really did know? What if he was already there? The door was locked. I got inside and went straight up the stairs, skipping steps. I locked my apartment door and leaned against it, breathing hard. I checked my windows. All closed. I checked my phone. His message wasn't there anymore. Unmatched. Gone. I didn't sleep much. Every sound from the hallway made me sit up. I kept replaying the night, trying to remember what I had said, what I had shown. I remembered my profile photos. One of them was taken outside my building. The mural across the street, the same mural he had commented on during our chat, saying it looked familiar. The next day, I tried to shake it off. Told myself he was just trying to sound confident. Creepy, sure, but not dangerous. I went to class. I grabbed food. I even read a few chapters for homework, trying to feel normal. That evening, I noticed something taped to my door. A flyer. Handwritten. Not threatening. Just my name at the top, spelled right. Underneath it, a list. Times. Dates. Little notes about weather. Things like blue jacket, late night, headphones. My chest felt hollow. I ripped it down and locked the door again. I checked the P. No, I can't use that word. I checked the space under the door. Nothing. I reported the Tinder profile. I blocked the number I didn't have. I didn't post online for a week. I stopped walking alone at night. But the worst part was realizing how much he already knew without me ever saying it out loud. The app did the work for him. My photos, my routines, my small habits I thought were invisible. 2 weeks later, I saw him again. Not close. Across the street. He didn't approach. Didn't wave. He just stood there like he was waiting for a bus that never came. When I noticed him, he smiled that same small smile. I went back inside and didn't look out the window again. I used to think hands were boring. Faces mattered. Vibes mattered. Hands were just there, holding phones, gripping cups, nothing deep. That changed the night I matched with her and realized how wrong I was. Even now, when I look at my fingers, I feel like they don't fully belong to me anymore. We matched on a random afternoon when I was killing time between classes. Her profile didn't scream anything weird. Soft lighting, normal smile, a few photos that looked like they were taken by someone else, which I took as a good sign. Her bio was short and kind of vague, something about liking quiet places and noticing small details. I remember thinking that was kind of cool, like she was trying too hard. We talked for a bit. Nothing intense. No rush. She asked about music, about whether I liked old neighborhoods or new ones, about habits. She paid attention in a way that felt calm, not pushy. When she suggested meeting, she picked a place I wouldn't normally choose. A small art space that doubled as a cafe, tucked behind a row of warehouses near the river. It was open late for an exhibit. I liked that it felt different. The place smelled like paint and coffee. The lights were dim, but not romantic, more practical. She was already there when I arrived, sitting on a bench near the back wall, watching people walk past the framed photos. She looked the same as her pictures, which relaxed me more than it should have. She smiled when she saw me and stood up. We walked around the exhibit first. Photos of empty rooms, abandoned offices, close-ups of everyday objects. Doorknobs, stair rails, tabletops with scratches. She talked about how spaces remember people even after they leave, how surfaces hold on to patterns. I nodded, pretending I understood exactly what she meant, even though it made my head feel fuzzy. We grabbed drinks from the counter and sat on stools near a window that looked out at the river. The water was dark and slow, reflecting broken lights from the bridge. She asked about my hands while I was talking about something stupid like a job I quit. She didn't interrupt me verbally, just reached out slightly, like she was waiting for permission. I held my hands out without thinking. Palms up. I remember noticing how dry my skin was, how one nail was chipped. She took one of my hands gently, turning it side to side, then looked at my fingertips closely. She nodded to herself, like she had just confirmed something important. The way she reacted made my stomach tighten. Not scared yet, just confused. She didn't explain right away. She just kept holding my hand a second longer than necessary, tracing the lines lightly with her thumb. Then she let go and finally told me why hands mattered to her. She explained that she only dates men whose fingerprints line up closely enough with someone she was trying to replace. Not metaphorically, not emotionally, literally. She talked about it like it was a hobby or a preference, the way some people only date tall guys or people with certain hair. She said fingerprints repeat more than people think, especially within certain ranges. She said she had been searching for a while. I laughed at first because my brain didn't know what else to do. I thought she was joking, testing me, being weird on purpose, but her face didn't change. She stayed calm, almost relieved, like she had been worried I wouldn't fit. She talked more after that, about how she kept records, how she had scans, prints lifted from objects, old paperwork. She didn't say where they came from, just that they were legal ones. She said mine were close enough that most people would never notice the difference. Close enough to pass. The room felt smaller. I looked around and noticed how few people were left. The staff were cleaning up quietly, stacking cups, taking down signs. I realized how isolated the space was, tucked away from the street, the sound of the river covering everything else. She asked about my schedule, about whether I worked with my hands, about injuries, scars. She noticed a small cut near my thumb and asked how I got it. When I told her, she nodded again, like she was building a list in her head. I tried to change the subject, asked about her job, her friends, where she lived. Her answers stayed vague. She talked around details, never landing anywhere solid. Every time I thought I had a picture of her life, it slipped away. After a while, she asked if I wanted to see something. Before I could answer, she pulled out her phone and showed me photos. Not of her, of hands. Dozens of them. Palms, fingertips, different angles. Some looked older, some rougher. All cataloged, zoomed, labeled with dates. One set was marked complete. I didn't ask what complete meant. I didn't want to know. I felt like if I stayed still enough, the night would just end on its own. But she kept going, explaining how hard it was to find a match, how rare it was to get someone who lined up as well as I did. She said it like she was complimenting me. I stood up suddenly, my stool scraping loud against the floor. My heart was pounding, my head buzzing. I said I had to go, that I wasn't feeling well. She didn't try to stop me. She just watched me carefully, like she was memorizing how I moved. As I walked toward the exit, she told me one last thing, not loudly, not urgently. She said replacement didn't mean disappearance. It meant continuation. She said people only notice what they expect to see. Outside, the air was cold and wet. The river smelled stronger. I walked fast, then faster, putting distance between me and that building. I checked my hands over and over, rubbing them on my jeans like I could blur the lines away. That night, I scrubbed my hands until they were raw. I couldn't stop staring at them. Every line felt wrong, like it wasn't mine originally. I slept badly and woke up with my fingers curled tight. The next day, I checked Tinder. Her profile was still there. Updated, new photos, none of her face. Just hands resting on different surfaces. A coffee cup. A railing. A countertop that looked way too familiar. One photo showed a hand with a small cut near the thumb. My cut. I unmatched immediately and deleted the app. I changed my routine. I stopped touching public surfaces when I could help it. I wore gloves more than I needed to. People noticed and joked about it. I didn't explain. A week later, I found a note slipped under my door. No name, no threats. Just a photo printed on cheap paper. A close-up of my hand from behind, taken somewhere I couldn't place. Underneath it was a single word. Close. I didn't call anyone. I didn't respond. I just locked my door and sat on my bed, staring at my palms, trying to remember if they had always looked this way. I didn't plan to meet anyone that night. It was one of those evenings where the air feels heavy and your phone feels like a trap. I was already in sweats, hair still damp, half watching videos when Tinder buzzed again. I had been swiping out of boredom, not hope. Then his profile came up. Normal smile. Normal job. Normal background that looked like an apartment kitchen. Nothing that screamed trouble. That should have been my first mistake. The normal ones always feel safest. We matched and talked like people who were trying to impress each other. It felt lazy in a good way. No pressure. He suggested grabbing food from a late-night place near the old train yard. I'd almost said no. Something about the idea made my stomach feel tight, but I ignored it. I told myself I was just tired of being alone. The place was loud and bright, all metal tables and buzzing lights. Grease in the air, the kind of spot where people go after games or long shifts. I got there first and sat where I could see the door. When he walked in, he waved like we already knew each other. That felt comforting in the moment. We ordered and sat down. Everything felt fine at first. Not exciting, not awkward. Just fine. He talked about his job, about how he had moved around a lot, how he liked meeting new people because no one knew his past. That line stuck with me, but I didn't say anything. I was more focused on the noise, the clatter of trays, the way the lights made everyone look a little unreal. His phone was on the table face down. It buzzed once. Then again. Then again. He flipped it over and frowned, apologetic. I didn't care. Everyone gets messages. But it didn't stop. The buzzing kept coming, short bursts, like something tapping fast under the table. I noticed the screen lighting up between buzzes. Tinder orange. Over and over. He glanced at it, then at me, then back at it. His face changed. Not scared exactly, but tight, like he was doing math in his head and not liking the answer. I leaned forward without thinking. The screen was still on. I saw my face. Not a mirror reflection. Not the angle I was sitting at. A photo. One I recognized instantly because it was from my profile. Same lighting. Same shirt. Same background wall with the crooked frame behind me. But the name under it wasn't mine. It was close though, one letter off. Another buzz. Another notification. Same face, different name. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it. He didn't move. He just stared at the phone like it was about to bite him. The notifications kept stacking. My face. Over and over. Different names each time. Some had bios, some didn't. All active now. I pulled my phone out with shaking hands. I opened Tinder. My profile was still there. Normal. Nothing wrong. No weird messages. No alerts. Everything looked fine on my end, which somehow made it worse. He finally picked up his phone and turned it slightly away, but it was too late. I had already seen enough. The buzzing slowed, then stopped. He locked the screen and put the phone in his pocket like that would erase what just happened. I didn't know what to say. My mouth felt dry. The food arrived and neither of us touched it. The noise around us faded. It felt like the room had tilted and we were the only ones not anchored. I stood up suddenly, chair scraping loud. I told him I needed air. I didn't wait for a response. I walked out into the cold, my breath coming out fast and uneven. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped my phone twice trying to unlock it. Outside, the street was empty except for a few cars passing too fast. I leaned against the wall and checked Tinder again. Nothing. No duplicates. No messages. Just my profile, sitting there like it always had. He came out a minute later and stood a few feet away. He didn't try to touch me. He looked confused, almost embarrassed. Like this wasn't part of his plan, whatever that plan was. He said something, but I barely processed it. All I could think about was how my face had been on his phone, talking to him, matching with him, pretending to be me. I left without another word. I did look back. I walked until my legs hurt, then took a bus I didn't normally take just to feel less predictable. When I got home, I locked the door and sat on the floor, back against it, phone clutched in my hands. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my face popping up on a screen that wasn't mine. Smiling. Matching. Being sent out into the world under names I didn't choose. The next morning, I woke up to notifications. Tinder messages. Dozens. My phone felt hot in my hand. I opened the app slowly, bracing myself. The messages weren't from people I matched with. They were replies. Confused ones. Asking why I had unmatched so fast. Asking if I was real. Some of them used names that weren't mine when they greeted me. I checked my profile. It was still there. But when I tapped edit, I noticed something wrong. My bio had changed slightly. Not enough that I would have noticed at a glance. A word missing. Another added. My distance was wrong too. It said less than 1 mile, even though I knew I was farther from most of those people. I logged out and logged back in. No change. I deleted the app and reinstalled it. When I logged back in, there were new messages waiting. More replies. More confusion. Some of the names matched the ones I had seen on his phone the night before. Over the next few days, it got worse. People would recognize me in public and act like they already knew me. One guy waved at me outside a convenience store and said my name wrong, just like the profile had. When I told him he had the wrong person, he looked embarrassed and said we had matched the night before. He showed me his phone. My face. Different name. I stopped using Tinder completely. Deleted photos. changed usernames on other apps just in case. But it didn't stop. My face kept circulating. Friends sent me screenshots asking if it was me. Profiles popping up, disappearing, popping up again. Always active, always nearby. I tried reporting it. The responses were generic. Nothing violated guidelines. No proof it was me. I couldn't prove it wasn't. A week later, I saw him again, not up close. Across the street, sitting on a bench, phone in his hands. It buzzed once. He looked up and smiled when he saw me. Not apologetic. Not confused. Just calm. I crossed the street the other way and didn't stop walking until my lungs burned. Even now, months later, I get messages from strangers who think they know me. Sometimes they use names I don't recognize. Sometimes they send screenshots of chats I never had but somehow sound like me. Somewhere out there, my face is still swiping, still matching, still talking to people I will never meet. And I have no idea how to make it stop. I should have known something was off the moment I stepped into her building, but I was already committed by then. The hallway smelled like old carpet and sweet air freshener, the kind people use when they want to cover something up instead of cleaning it. My phone buzzed as I waited at her door, and I remember thinking how weird it felt that I already knew the layout of the place just from the way she had described it earlier. Like I had been there before without actually being there. We matched a week earlier. Her profile felt calm, almost boring, which was honestly what pulled me in. No dramatic captions, no overdone pictures. Just her sitting on a couch, her leaning on a balcony, her holding a drink at a place I didn't recognize. We talked at night mostly, slow messages that didn't feel rushed. She remembered things I told her in passing, old stuff, stuff I forgot I even mentioned. When she invited me over, she said she liked staying in more than going out. That felt normal. I checked her location, sent it to a friend, told myself I was being responsible. I didn't expect anything intense. Just a chill night, maybe a drink, maybe watching something dumb. The door opened, and the first thing I noticed was the smell. Candles. Too many of them. Not overpowering, but layered like different scents fighting for space. The lights were low, not dark, just enough to soften everything. She smiled and stepped aside so I could come in. The apartment was clean in a way that felt staged. No clutter. No random shoes. No messy counters. Everything had a place, and everything looked intentional. There was wine already poured on the table, 2 glasses placed evenly apart. Music playing low, something slow and familiar, but not something I could name. I sat down and tried to relax. We talked about random stuff at first. Work, shows, dumb internet things. She watched me closely when I talked, not in a flirty way, more like she was checking something off in her head. Every time I shifted in my seat, her eyes followed. Then I noticed the frames. They were small at first, easy to miss. A few on a shelf near the couch. Black frames, simple. I leaned forward, thinking they were family photos or something artsy. My stomach dropped when I realized what I was looking at. It was me. Not recent. Not selfies I had taken last week. Old photos. Ones I recognized instantly because they had been buried so deep online I forgot they existed. A picture of me from a party years ago, wearing a jacket I haven't owned in forever. A photo from a beach trip that had been deleted when I cleaned my profile. A candid shot someone else had posted and tagged me in, then removed later. They weren't just screenshots. They were printed. High quality. Trimmed carefully. Framed like they mattered. I didn't say anything right away. My brain felt slow, like it was buffering. I stood up and walked closer, pretending I was just stretching. The more I looked, the worse it got. There were more frames. On the wall near the kitchen. On a side table. Even one on the shelf near the door. Different versions of me. Different years. Different phases. All arranged like a timeline. She watched me the whole time. She didn't look nervous. She looked proud. I asked how she found them, trying to sound casual, like this wasn't completely messing with my head. She told me she liked to be prepared. She said people leave too much of themselves behind online and forget about it. She said nothing ever really disappears. That made my skin feel tight. I thought about old accounts, old usernames, things I posted and deleted when I was younger, things I assumed were gone. I walked toward the hallway, needing space. The walls that were lined with more frames, smaller ones. Some of them were photos I had never seen before. Angles that didn't feel like they came from social media. Me sitting on a bus, me walking down a street, me looking at my phone outside a store. My chest started pounding. I asked when those were taken. She said she liked being thorough. The candles suddenly felt wrong. The wine untouched, the music too quiet. I felt like I had stepped into a room that was built around me without my permission. She explained that she liked knowing who people really were before letting them into her space. She said it helped her feel safe. She said she had read everything I had ever posted publicly. Comments, captions, even arguments in old threads I forgot about. She knew what phases I went through, what jokes I used to make, what opinions I used to have and later deleted. I asked if she did this with everyone. She paused before answering. She said not everyone was worth the effort. That wasn't comforting. That made it worse. I noticed one frame near her desk that made my stomach drop completely. It was a photo of me from my own phone, a mirror shot I had taken years ago and never posted anywhere. I remembered deleting it because I hated how I looked. I remembered clearing it from my camera roll. I asked how she got that one. She said backups exist in more places than people realize. She said old phones get synced. Cloud accounts overlap. Data leaks. She said it like she was explaining weather. I stepped back and bumped into the table. One of the wine glasses tipped and spilled, dark red spreading across the surface. Neither of us moved to clean it. The stain looked like it belonged there. I told her I needed to go. My voice felt thin, like it didn't fully belong to me anymore. She didn't argue. She didn't block the door. She just nodded like this was part of the night she expected. As I walked toward the door, I noticed one last thing. A stack of frames leaned against the wall, not hung yet. More photos of me. Newer ones. Ones from just the past few months. Some from places I didn't remember taking pictures at all. Outside, the air felt cold and sharp. I walked fast, then faster, not stopping until I was 2 blocks away. I checked behind me over and over, my heart pounding so hard it made my ears ring. When I got home, I locked the door and sat on the floor, scrolling through my accounts, my old emails, my backups. I couldn't tell what was mine anymore and what wasn't. Everything felt exposed. The next morning, I woke up to a notification. A message from her. She said she hoped I got home safe. She said she would keep the frames in case I wanted them someday. I blocked her everywhere, deleted apps, changed passwords, but it didn't undo what I had seen. I still think about those photos, sitting in that apartment, waiting. Sometimes I wonder if she's added new ones since then, ones taken without me ever knowing, ones I haven't even seen yet. I didn't notice the pattern at first, and that still bothers me. It didn't start scary. It started boring. The kind of boring where you almost feel bad for judging it. I matched with him on a slow night when my phone battery was low and my expectations were even lower. His profile was simple. A few selfies, nothing flashy. His bio mentioned being bad at texting, which I weirdly found comforting. Like maybe this wouldn't turn into one of those constant message things that drains you before you even meet. We started talking, and it was exactly like he warned. Short replies, slow gaps, sometimes hours between messages. I filled in the silence with my own assumptions, telling myself he was busy, distracted, and not glued to his phone. It felt kind of grown up, like we both had lives outside the app. When he didn't reply right away, I didn't panic. I actually liked that I was checking my phone every 2 minutes. After a few days, I noticed something small. Every time I opened a message from him, my phone would feel warm, like it had just been used. I brushed it off. Phones do that. I kept replying when I felt like it. Sometimes right away, sometimes later. There was no pressure. Then one night, I didn't reply at all. It wasn't on purpose. I opened his message while standing in line at a grocery store, read it quickly, and then put my phone away. I forgot about it completely until the next morning. When I woke up, there were multiple notifications waiting. Not messages. Images. Screenshots. The first one showed our chat from his side. My message highlighted. Next to it, a small timestamp showing the exact minute I had opened it. The second screenshot was zoomed in closer, like he wanted to make sure I saw it. The third showed a different screen entirely, some kind of log with times lined up neatly, my name repeated over and over. My chest tightened instantly. I scrolled through them slowly, hoping I was misunderstanding. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe it was some weird app feature I didn't know about. But the timestamps were too specific, too accurate. They matched my memory down to the minute I had been standing between the cereal aisle and the freezer section. I didn't reply right away. I needed time to think. That turned out to be a mistake. More screenshots came in, each one documenting something I had done with my phone. When I opened the app, when I closed it, when my status changed from active to away, it felt like someone was narrating my movements without being in the room. He followed it up with a message explaining himself. Not apologizing, just explaining. He said he was good at texting because he overanalyzed everything. He said he liked knowing where things stood. He said it helped him feel grounded. That word stuck with me. Grounded. Like he was the one trying to stay stable while tracking my behavior like a project. I finally replied, keeping it short. I said it made me uncomfortable. I said I didn't know how he could see that information. I asked him to stop. His response came instantly, faster than any message before. He sent another screenshot. This one showed my reply highlighted with the exact second it was open on his end, like proof that he was watching in real time. After that, I stopped responding completely. I didn't block him right away. I wanted to see what would happen. That was probably not smart, but curiosity got the better of me. The screenshots kept coming. Not constantly, but spaced out, like reminders. Every few hours, a new image showing the last time I had opened the app, even when I didn't open our chat directly. Apparently just launching Tinder was enough for him to know. I started feeling tense every time I touched my phone. I turned off notifications. Then I logged out. Then I deleted the app. I thought that would end it. It didn't. The next morning, I got an email notification from Tinder about a new message. My stomach dropped. I hadn't logged back in. I opened the email preview and saw his name. Underneath it was a screenshot attached, not from Tinder, from my phone. It showed my lock screen, the time, my battery percentage, a notification banner from a different app I had been using late at night, something I had opened for less than a minute before falling asleep. I stared at it until my vision blurred. I didn't know how that was possible. I had never sent him anything like that. I had never shared my screen. I checked my settings, my permissions, my linked accounts. Nothing looked wrong, which somehow made it worse. I blocked him everywhere I could think of. I reported the account. I changed my passwords. I told myself it was over. 2 days later, I got another message. Not from Tinder, from a random number. No text, just an image. It was another screenshot. This one showed a list of message statuses, my name at the top, little markers next to it. Opened, closed, inactive, active. Timestamps going back weeks, further than we had even been talking. I started thinking about every time I had checked his profile, every late night scroll, every moment of boredom. It all felt exposed now, like I had been leaving footprints without knowing it. I stopped using my phone unless I absolutely had to. I left it face down. Sometimes I turned it off completely, but the anxiety stuck around. I felt watched even when the screen was dark. A week later, I saw him in person. I didn't recognize him at first. Just a guy standing across the street while I waited for the bus. He was staring at me directly. He was looking at his phone. Then it buzzed. I knew it buzzed because I felt my own phone vibrate in my pocket at the exact same moment. I didn't check it. I didn't move. I just stood there until the bus came and got on without looking back. When I finally checked my phone later, there was one last image waiting. A screenshot of my location dot moving along a map. Not exact, but close enough. I got a new phone after that. New number. New accounts. I told myself I was being dramatic, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it wouldn't matter. Once someone knows how to watch, it feels like they never really stop. Sometimes my phone lights up for no reason. Sometimes I swear the screen wakes itself. And every time it does, I think about how he said he was bad at texting, and how that was never really true. I didn't think one good night could flip my stomach like that, but it did. It wasn't even a bad date. That's the part that still messes with me. If it had been awkward or creepy from the start, I would have bailed early and never thought about it again. Instead, it was smooth in a boring way. The kind of night you replay once or twice and then forget. Or at least that's what I thought it was going to be. We matched on a Sunday afternoon when I was half asleep and swiping without looking too hard. Her profile felt warm. Lots of smiling photos, nothing wild, nothing trying too hard. She looked like someone who would wave at neighbors and remember birthdays. We talked for a few days, mostly at night. She replied fast, but not desperate. She asked thoughtful questions. She remembered details. I liked that. We met at a small outdoor food place near the edge of town. Picnic tables, string lights, loud trucks passing by. It felt casual and safe. She showed up early and saved a seat. She smiled when she saw me, not fake, not nervous, just calm. I relaxed instantly. The date went easy. Food, walking around, sitting on a low wall watching cars pass. She laughed at dumb stuff. She touched my arm once while talking, then did do it again. It felt normal, balanced. When it ended, it felt like a clean ending, not rushed, not dragged out. I walked away thinking I might actually see her again. On the way home, my phone buzzed. Her name popped up. I smiled before even opening it. The message wasn't flirty. It was clingy. It was a question. She wanted to know if I believed in soul ties. That phrase alone made my brain slow down. I had heard it online before, usually in comments or late-night videos. I didn't really know what it meant in a real-life context. I replied honestly, said I wasn't sure, said I thought people connect in different ways. She replied almost instantly. She said she believed some people were meant to be marked by each other. She said she could feel it right away sometimes. She said first dates were enough if the energy lined up. I didn't reply for a minute. I told myself she was just spiritual or dramatic. People believe all kinds of things. I didn't want to overthink it. Then she sent another message. Not long, just very clear. She told me she had already booked a tattoo appointment. My name, scheduled for later that week. My stomach dropped so hard I had to sit down. I reread the message 3 times, hoping I had misunderstood. Hoping it was a joke that would land better with context. But there was no emoji, no follow-up, no sign she was messing around. I asked if she was serious. I tried to keep it light. She sent a screenshot in response. It was a booking confirmation. Date, time, artist name, and a note section with my name typed out clearly. I stared at my phone until my screen dimmed. My chest felt tight. This was someone talking about a future. This was someone making it physical, permanent, after one night. I told her that made me uncomfortable. I said it felt too fast. I said I didn't think that was a good idea. She didn't get defensive. That almost made it worse. She said she understood why I would feel surprised. She said she was asking for permission. She said the choice was already made. She explained that she had done this before. Not often. Only when she was sure. She said names could be covered later if things changed. She said the act itself mattered more than the outcome. That sentence stuck in my head. The act mattered more than the outcome. I stopped replying after that. I needed space. I needed my thoughts to slow down. I put my phone face down and tried to distract myself with videos, with music, with anything. Nothing worked. Later that night, another message came in. A photo. It was her arm, skin bare. A marker outline drawn lightly. My name, in cursive, placed just below her shoulder. She said the artist wanted to check placement ahead of time. I didn't respond. I turned my phone off. The next day at school, I felt off, like I was walking around with a secret I didn't want. Every vibration made my heart jump. I kept imagining my name on someone else's body, someone I barely knew, someone I had spent maybe 2 hours with. I turned my phone back on that afternoon. There were more messages, none angry, none desperate, just updates. She told me she had been thinking about fonts. She asked if I preferred something softer or sharper. She said she wanted it to feel like me. That part made me feel sick, like my identity was being taken and reshaped without me. I blocked her number. I unmatched her. I deleted the app. I thought that would end it. 2 days later, I got a message from an unknown account on another platform. No name, no profile photo, just a picture. It was her arm again, this time with ink, so fresh. Red around the edges, my name exactly as she had drawn it. Permanent. I sat on my bed staring at it for a long time. I felt numb. I didn't know what emotion fit. Fear didn't feel strong enough. Confusion didn't cover it. It felt heavier, like something had been claimed without asking. I didn't reply. I didn't block it right away either. I just let it sit there. The image burned into my head. After that, things got quieter. No more messages. No more updates. Weeks passed. I started to relax again. I told myself it was over. Then one night, I saw her at a grocery store across town. She didn't approach me. She didn't wave. She just stood in line a few spots away. When she turned slightly, I saw it. Her shoulder, the edge of the tattoo peeking out from under her shirt. My name. She caught me looking and smiled softly, like we shared something private, like this was still ours. I left my cart and walked out without buying anything. My hands were shaking by the time I got to my car. I still think about it sometimes, about how my name exists somewhere I can't erase it, about how one normal night turned into something permanent without my consent. I don't use my real name on apps anymore. I don't give it out easily. I don't swipe the same way. Somewhere out there, my name is inked into skin because of a feeling that lasted a few hours, and there's nothing I can do about that. I didn't notice the cracks at first because there were no cracks to notice. Everything about him lined up too clean, like a profile built to slide past alarms instead of tripping them. When we matched, I remember thinking he felt easy. Not exciting easy, just steady. The kind of guy you imagine fitting into whatever corner of your life you put him in. His photos looked real, not staged, not overdone. One of him leaning on a railing somewhere green. One blurry group shot where he was even centered. His bio was short and casual, but he didn't care much about selling himself. That made me trust it more than I should have. We talked for a week before meeting. Nothing intense. He matched my pace perfectly. If I replied fast, he replied fast. If I took hours, so did he. It felt balanced, like a mirror without being obvious. When he suggested meeting, he picked a spot that sounded chill. A converted warehouse that had food stalls and random seating. Lots of people, lots of noise, lots of exits. The first date went smooth. Too smooth. He asked good questions, laughed at the right moments, didn't overshare. He told stories about his past that felt grounded. Nothing dramatic. He had moved around a bit, worked different jobs, met all kinds of people. It all sounded normal, if a little vague. What I didn't notice then was how often he checked the room. Not nervously, strategically, like he was scanning who else was listening. We kept seeing each other, sometimes alone, sometimes around other people. That was when things started to feel off, but only in tiny ways at first. Details that didn't quite line up, but not enough to call out without sounding paranoid. The first time I noticed was at a small get-together with some of my friends. Nothing big. Just food, music, people sitting around. Someone asked him about his old job. I leaned in, already knowing the answer. He had told me before. Something boring, warehouse work, short hours. Nothing special. But that was what he said that night. This time, the job changed. Same company name, different role. Suddenly, it involved late shifts and sketchy situations. Stories about tense moments and close calls. Nothing extreme, but definitely darker than before. I watched my friends react, leaning in, eyes wide. He noticed too. He adjusted his tone, letting certain details hang longer than others. I told myself I must have remembered wrong. Memory is messy like that. I didn't say anything. Another time, we were out with one of his friends. The topic shifted to family. I had read about his background through the way he talked about it to me. Distant but stable. No big drama. Parents divorced, but civil. Nothing that stuck. That night, the story bent again. This time, there was more tension. Old grudges. Someone who had disappeared for a while. He didn't say much, but the implication was heavier. I watched his friend listen without reacting, like this version wasn't new to them either. That was when it clicked. It was that he was lying randomly. He was adjusting. Each time, his story shifted just enough to match the room. More edge when people leaned forward, more calm when they pulled back, like he was tuning himself to the frequency around him. When we were alone, he felt safest, softest. His stories smoothed out. Nothing scary. Nothing that would push me away. He talked about wanting stability, about being tired of chaos, about liking routines. It made me feel special, like I was seeing the real him. But I wasn't. I was just seeing the version meant for me. Once I noticed the pattern, I couldn't unsee it. I started paying attention to when he changed things, what details he swapped, what he kept consistent. Names stayed the same, places too, but the tone shifted every time. The weight of the story, the implication of who he was inside it. I realized he was watching reactions more than listening, watching eyes, posture, breath. He would pause mid-story sometimes just long enough to see how it landed, then continue in the direction that held the room. It made my stomach hurt. One night, we were sitting outside a late cafe, not many people around, just a few tables spread out. Someone nearby was talking loudly about something dark they had been through. I noticed his attention drift. He leaned slightly closer to me and started telling a story I had never heard before. This one was heavier than anything he had shared. The kind of story people lower their voices for. It wasn't graphic. It didn't need to be. It was the way he framed himself in it. Calm, detached, like he had watched something terrible happen and learned from it instead of being affected by it. I felt my chest tighten. I didn't interrupt. I didn't react much at all. I just listened and nodded slowly. That seemed to disappoint him. The next time he told the story, it changed again. This time, the focus wasn't on what happened, but on how close he had been to it, how easily things could have gone another way. The danger felt closer, sharper. I noticed his eyes stay locked on my face, searching for something. I realized then that he was trying to tell me who he was. He was trying to find out what scared me most. That thought followed me everywhere after that. I started pulling back, replying slower, making excuses. He noticed immediately. His tone shifted even in text. More careful, more reassuring, like he was dialing himself down. But then we would be around others, and he would dial himself up again. Different versions layered on top of each other. I wondered how many there were. I wondered which one was the original, if there even was one. The breaking point came at a party I almost didn't go to. A friend of a friend thing. Crowded apartment. Loud music. I brought him because it felt easier than explaining why I didn't want to. I regretted it within 10 minutes. I watched him move through the room like water, changing shape depending on who he was standing near. Funny and harmless with one group. Quiet and intense with another. Then I saw him across the room with someone who looked uncomfortable. I drifted closer without making it obvious. I caught pieces of what he was saying. Another version of a story I had heard before. This one was the darkest yet, the implication heavier, the outcome left open in a way that made my skin crawl. The person he was talking to looked frozen, eyes wide, unsure whether to laugh or back away. I stepped in and changed the subject. He turned to me and smiled like nothing had happened, like he hadn't just tested how far he could push someone with words alone. Later that night, when we were alone again, he softened, apologized for being intense, said he sometimes overshares when he's nervous. He said he was trying to be honest. That was when I knew I couldn't do this anymore. I didn't confront him directly. I didn't accuse him. I just slowly removed myself. Fewer hangouts, shorter replies, vague reasons. He adapted, of course, became sweeter, more careful, like a safer version was being deployed. But once you see the switches, the illusion is gone. The last time I saw him was accidental. A grocery store late at night. He was with someone else, someone new. I watched from the end of the aisle as he leaned in and told the story. I couldn't hear it, but I could see the posture, the timing, the pause where he waited for reaction. The other person laughed nervously. He adjusted. I left without being seen. I didn't feel relief, just tired. Sometimes I still think about how easy it would have been to stay, to let him keep adjusting until he found the version that worked best on me, and that scares me more than any single story he ever told. I knew something was wrong before I even opened the door, but I ignored it because I didn't want to seem dramatic in my own head. The building was one of those half-renovated houses split into apartments, the kind with uneven steps and a porch that creaks no matter how careful you are. I stood there for a second, phone in my hand, rereading her message about meeting her friends. She said it like it was casual, like I was finally being folded into her normal life. I remember feeling weirdly proud about that, which is embarrassing now. We had been talking for about 2 weeks. She was easy to like in that soft way, never pushing, never rushing. She didn't overshare, didn't trauma dump, didn't love bomb. She just felt calm, grounded. When she suggested I meet her friends, she said it would be low-key, just hanging out at a place they used to live near campus. She said they wanted to meet the guy she had been talking to so much about. That should have raised questions, but I told myself people do that. Some friend groups are tight. Some people overshare. I didn't want to be the guy who backed out over nothing. I knocked. The door opened almost immediately. The first thing I noticed was her. It was the silence. No music, no background noise, no laughing from another room. Just a heavy quiet that made my ears ring a little. She smiled and waved me in like everything was normal. The lights were low but not cozy, just dim enough to blur faces. I stepped inside and that's when I saw them. Chairs were arranged in a loose circle in the living room. Mismatched chairs, but they had been pulled from different rooms on purpose. Sitting in them were 5 guys. Different heights, different styles, different ages, but all watching me at the exact same time. None of them smiled. None of them spoke. They just looked at me like I was something being measured. My stomach dropped. I glanced back at her, expecting some kind of explanation, some laugh, some sign this was a joke. She didn't offer one. She just closed the door behind me and gestured toward the only empty chair in the circle. I did sit down right away. I stood there, heart pounding, trying to make sense of it. She finally explained, calmly, like she was introducing coworkers. She said these were her exes. She said they were important to her. She said they liked to meet the new person. That sentence didn't make sense, not the way she said it, not with the way they were all watching me. I asked why they were all here. She said it was tradition. That word hit me wrong. Tradition means repeated, planned, expected. One of the guys shifted slightly in his chair. Another crossed his arms. I noticed then that they all looked tired in the same way. Dark under their eyes. Stiff posture, but they had been sitting there a long time. She finally took a seat too, completing the circle. I was still standing. I felt like if I sat, something would lock into place that I couldn't undo. She started talking about me. Things I had told her in private. Little details. Where I worked. How long I had lived there. Things I liked. Things that annoyed me. She got them all right. The guys listened closely. One of them nodded at certain points, like he recognized the pattern. Then she asked them what they thought. One guy leaned forward slightly. He looked at me the way a manager looks at a new hire. He said something about how I seemed calmer than the last one. Another mentioned that I made eye contact better. Another said I looked more uncomfortable than he had expected. They were comparing me. My chest felt tight. I asked what this was really about. She said she liked honesty. She said she believed people repeat themselves unless interrupted. She said having witnesses helped her see clearly. One of the guys finally spoke directly to me. He told me he had sat in that same chair 2 years ago. He told me he had thought it was strange but kind of flattering at the time. He told me it felt like an audition. That word echoed in my head, audition. Another guy laughed quietly, not amused, just tired. He said he remembered thinking he had passed. He said it took months to realize there was no passing, just staying longer than the others. I felt sick. I looked at her again. She wasn't smiling anymore. She was watching my reactions closely. My breathing, my hands. She asked how I felt being seen. I didn't answer. I was too focused on the room, the exits, the door behind me, how close it really was. One of the exes said something that stuck with me. He said she liked to watch how men handled pressure when they couldn't charm their way out of it. He said silence was part of the test. I realized then why none of them were talking much. They had already been through this. They knew the rules. They were there to observe, not participate. I asked why they were still in her life. She said relationships don't end just because labels change. She said they all shared history. She said it was important to keep records. Records. I noticed then that on the coffee table in the center of the circle was a notebook. Thick, worn, tabs sticking out from the sides. I didn't touch it, but I didn't need to. I knew what it was. One of the guys noticed me looking and nodded. He said she wrote things down. Dates, behaviors, reactions. What worked, what didn't. I finally sat down, mostly because my legs felt weak. The chair was colder than the others, like it hadn't been used yet. As soon as I sat, the feeling in the room changed, like something had clicked into place. She asked me questions, not normal first date questions. Questions about conflict, about jealousy, about control, about how I react when I feel judged. She asked them to weigh in on my answers. They did calmly, like a panel. I stopped answering honestly halfway through. I started saying what felt safest, most neutral. I watched her eyes narrow slightly when I did. She noticed. After a while, she stood up and said that was enough for tonight. She said she needed time to think. She said they would talk later. The guy stood too. One of them gave me a look that felt like a warning and an apology at the same time. Another shook his head slightly, almost imperceptible. She walked me to the door like nothing strange had happened. She thanked me for coming. She said she knew it was a lot. She said not everyone makes it this far. I stepped outside and the air felt unreal, like I had been underwater. My hands were shaking. I walked until my legs burned. I didn't check my phone until I got home. There was already a message waiting from her. She said she hoped I didn't feel overwhelmed. She said she liked how I handled myself. She said the others had thoughts. I didn't reply. I blocked her. I deleted the app. I didn't want to know what the thoughts were. Weeks later, I ran into one of the exes at a bus stop. He recognized me instantly. He asked if I was okay. He said leaving early was probably the right move. He told me something I still think about. He said the circle keeps getting smaller. People leave. People get replaced. But she never stops inviting them back to watch. Sometimes when I think about that room, I imagine another chair being added, another guy standing where I stood, another quiet circle forming. And I'm just glad I'm not sitting in it anymore. I almost didn't get in the car, and that thought hits me every time I hear tires slow down on a dark road. The night had already stretched longer than I planned, the kind of evening that starts light and ends heavy without warning. I remember thinking I was tired in a normal way, not the kind of tired that should come with a warning sign. If I had known what was about to happen, I would have walked home, called someone, done anything else. But I didn't. I smiled, nodded, and got into the passenger seat like it was just another ride. We meshed earlier that week. His profile was clean and simple, like he had edited it down to avoid standing out. Nothing flashy, nothing dramatic. His messages were polite, almost formal, but not stiff. He asked about my day, my classes, where I liked to hang out. I didn't feel rushed. When we met up, it was at a late-night diner near the highway, one of those places that never fully closes and always smells like coffee no matter what you order. The date itself wasn't bad. Not amazing, not awful. Just okay. He listened more than he talked, which I took as a good sign. He didn't push boundaries. Didn't overshare. Didn't make jokes that felt off. When it started getting late, he offered to drive me home. I hesitated, but my place wasn't far, and the buses were already running slow. I told myself I was being cautious enough. I texted a friend his name and the area we were in. I thought that was enough. His car was quiet inside, no music playing. The dashboard lights glowed soft blue. He drove smoothly, not fast, not slow. I watched the streetlights pass and let my guard drop a little. The road we took was the main one, but I assumed it was just a shortcut. After a few minutes, the car slowed down. He pulled over onto a wide shoulder near a stretch of road with no buildings, just trees and tall grass. Headlights from passing cars flashed by occasionally, but otherwise it was dark. My heart rate picked up immediately. I asked if something was wrong. He stayed calm. His hands rested on the wheel. His voice didn't change. He explained that he liked to be honest with people. He said he believed honesty built trust. Then he started explaining something else, something I still hear clearly in my head. He explained how easy it would be for me to disappear without anyone noticing. Not in a threatening way, not angry, not excited, just calm, like he was explaining how a machine worked. He talked about routines, how people assume patterns continue even when they don't. He talked about how long it takes for concern to turn into action, how reports get delayed, how adults go missing more often than anyone wants to admit. My body went cold, but I didn't move. I didn't interrupt. I was too busy trying to breathe normally. He pointed out the road, how often cars passed, how no one would stop, how shoulders like this existed everywhere. He mentioned phones, how they lose signal, how batteries die, how messages stay unsent. He talked about how long it would take before someone noticed I wasn't where I was supposed to be. He was describing a plan. That was the worst part. He was describing a possibility, like it was already there, waiting, and he was just outlining it for me. I remember staring at the door handle and realizing how heavy it felt, how far away it suddenly seemed. My legs felt numb. My thoughts kept slipping. He finished by saying he would never do anything like that. He said he just wanted me to understand how fragile safety really was. He said people trust too easily. He said he thought I deserved to know. Then he put the car back in drive and pulled onto the road like nothing had happened. The rest of the ride felt unreal. My ears rang. My hands shook in my lap. I nodded when he asked if I was okay because I didn't trust my voice. When we reached my street, he stopped in front of my building. The lights were on inside, like everything was normal. I got out of the car without looking back. I walked fast to the door and didn't turn around until I was inside. My legs felt weak. I locked the door behind me and slid down against it, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound made me jump. Every car passing outside made my chest tighten. I kept replaying the way he spoke. Not what he said, but how he said it, like he was teaching me something useful. The next morning, I woke up to a message from him. He asked if I got home safe. He said he had enjoyed the night. He said he hoped he hadn't scared me. I didn't reply. I blocked him. I deleted the app. I told myself it was over. But a few days later, I saw his car again, not parked, just passing by my street. I couldn't be sure it was him, but the color and shape matched too well. My stomach dropped. I closed the curtains and sat on the floor until my breathing slowed. After that, little things started to feel wrong. A car idling too long. Footsteps behind me at night. My phone losing signal for no reason. I knew I was probably imagining most of it, but once someone explains how easy it would be for you to vanish, the world stops feeling solid. A week later, I ran into him at a gas station near campus. He smiled like we were old friends. He asked how I had been. He didn't mention the ride. He didn't mention the road. He acted like nothing strange had happened. I didn't stop. I walked past him and didn't look back. Sometimes I still think about that stretch of road, how ordinary it looked, how many others probably pull over there for normal reasons, how nothing about it would raise alarms. I think about how calmly he explained it all, like it was just information, like knowledge couldn't be dangerous. I take different routes home now. I don't accept rides. I don't let my phone battery dip too low. I tell people where I am even when it feels silly. And every time a car slows down beside me, I remember how easy he said it would be. I noticed it before I felt it, that tiny buzz in my pocket that didn't make sense in the moment. My phone shouldn't have been doing anything. It was face down on the table between us, screen dark, silent. We were still mid-conversation, still sitting there with half-empty cups and crumbs on the table, still pretending this was a normal first date. When the vibration happened, my brain skipped a beat like it was trying to catch up to something that had already moved. I didn't pick it up right away. Neither did she. She just kept looking at me, chin resting on her hand, eyes steady. The place we were at was a small cafe that stayed open late for students, all mismatched furniture and flyers taped to the walls. It wasn't romantic. It was sketchy. It was the kind of place where nothing bad should happen. We matched earlier that week. Her profile had felt sharp in a good way. Confident, but not loud. Her pictures looked current. No heavy filters. No group shots where you have to guess which one she is. We talked easily, fast replies, similar humor. When we decided to meet, it didn't feel risky. It felt obvious. The date had been fine. Not sparks flying, but comfortable. We talked about school, work, dumb trends online. She laughed at the right times. She paid attention. Every now and then she would glance at her phone, but so did I, nothing weird. Until that buzz. I finally picked my phone up, expecting a random notification from something else. Instead, Tinder was open. The chat we had been using was gone. Completely gone. Her name missing from my matches like it had never existed. My stomach dropped. I looked up at her immediately. She was smiling. Not wide, not awkward, just small and knowing, like she had been waiting for me to notice. She didn't reach for her phone. She didn't say anything. She just watched my face change. Then my phone buzzed again. New match. Same face, different name. My hand started shaking. I opened it without thinking. Her profile loaded instantly. Same photos, same bio, slightly edited. One sentence removed. One added. The distance said less than 1 mile. Active now. I looked up again. She was still sitting there. Same jacket, same posture, same eyes on me. The only thing that had changed was the version of her that existed on my screen. Another message came in from the new account. A simple greeting. Like we had never talked before. I felt dizzy. I checked the table around us, half expecting someone else to be filming or laughing. No one was paying attention. People were studying, scrolling, living their own lives. I asked what was going on. My voice sounded thin even to me. She finally picked up her phone. She unlocked it slowly, deliberately. I saw Tinder on her screen too. Multiple chats open. Profile photos blurring past as she scrolled. She stopped on one and tilted the screen just enough for me to see. It was me. My photo of my bio, my profile, but the name wasn't mine. Again, just one letter off. She told me she liked to keep options organized. She said some connections work better when reset. She said first impressions get messy if you let them sit too long. My heart was pounding so hard I thought other people might hear it. I told her this wasn't funny. I told her to stop. She didn't argue. She just unmatched that account too. My phone buzzed immediately. Another new match. Same face, different name again. This time, the bio had changed more. Details I had told her in person were suddenly there. My favorite snack, the class I complained about, the joke I had made earlier that night. She was updating me in real time. I stood up so fast my chair scraped loud against the floor. A few people looked over. I didn't care. I grabbed my bag and told her I was leaving. She didn't try to stop me. She just said something calm, something reassuring, like this was all normal and I was the one overreacting. As I walked toward the door, my phone kept buzzing. Match after match. Each one her. Each one slightly different. Sometimes the name changed. Sometimes the bio. Once, the profile picture switched to a candid shot of me sitting at the table, taken moments earlier. I felt sick. Outside, the air was cold and sharp. I walked fast, then faster, putting distance between me and that cafe. I didn't stop until I was 2 blocks away. I leaned against a wall and tried to breathe. My phone buzzed again. This time, the message wasn't from Tinder. It was a text. Unknown number. The message said she liked how I reacted. She said watching the switch happen in real life was better than guessing. She said people reveal more when they think something is wrong. I blocked the number. Another one messaged immediately after. Same message, slightly reworded. I turned my phone off. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her sitting there calmly, while versions of her multiplied on my screen. I kept thinking about how fast it happened, how practiced it felt, like she had done this before. The next morning, I turned my phone back on. I had dozens of Tinder notifications waiting. Messages from people I had never matched with, confused and annoyed. Some called me by names I didn't recognize. Some referenced conversations I never had. My profile had been duplicated. Not just once, multiple versions, all active, all nearby. I reported it. I sent screenshots. I explained everything. The responses were slow and generic. Nothing violated guidelines. Profiles get recreated all the time. Maybe I forgot matching with them. Maybe someone else was using my photos. I knew better. Over the next week, I kept seeing her profiles pop up, sometimes when I was swiping, sometimes when I was even using the app. Friends sent me screenshots asking if I was talking to them under a different name. One friend said I had unmatched her twice in one night. I stopped using Tinder completely, deleted the app, changed my photos everywhere else, but it didn't fully stop. Once, I got a message on a different app from someone asking why I had changed my name again. They sent a screenshot. My face, her bio style, her wording. It was like she had learned how to be me by watching me react to her. Weeks later, I ran into her by accident at a campus event. She didn't approach me. She didn't wave. She just stood across the room talking to someone else. I watched her pull out her phone and smile down at it. My phone buzzed in my pocket at the same time. I didn't check it. I left immediately. I still don't use my real name on apps. I still flinch when my phone vibrates unexpectedly. Sometimes I wonder how many versions of me are still floating around, matching with strangers, saying things I never would. The scariest part isn't that she unmatched me while sitting across from me. It's how easily she replaced me before I even stood up. The first time he finished my sentence, I thought it was cute. Not movie cute, just familiar cute, like when someone knows your rhythm fast. It happened early within the first 10 minutes, and I remember laughing it off because the night still felt light then. I didn't know yet that every word I said was something he had already heard before, just not from me. We matched out of nowhere. One swipe months earlier that I barely remembered. He showed up in my matches again later like a delayed echo. His profile didn't stand out. Average pictures, short bio, nothing trying to grab attention. I almost swiped past him a second time, but something about how normal he looked made me stop. Our messages were smooth, not intense, not awkward. He replied with just enough interest to keep things moving. He didn't double text, didn't push, didn't ask anything invasive. It felt like talking to someone who had done this before but wasn't bored by it yet. When we planned the date, he suggested a small bookstore cafe on the edge of downtown. The kind of place with crooked shelves and old posters taped to the windows. It felt safe. Public, familiar, I liked that. He was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with a coffee he hadn't touched yet. He smiled like he was relieved, not excited, like something had finally clicked into place. We talked about easy stuff at first. Classes, work, random stories. That's when it started happening. I would begin a sentence and he would quietly finish it. Not interrupting, not talking over me. Just filling in the last few words exactly how I was about to say them. The first time I laughed. The second time I paused. The third time I felt my stomach tighten. It wasn't just the words, it was the timing. The way he waited just long enough to be sure. The way he watched my face instead of listening for sound, like he was reading ahead. I asked if I was being predictable. He smiled and shrugged, said people usually are. We walked through the aisles of the bookstore next, mugs in hand. He kept matching my pace exactly. When I stopped, he stopped. When I leaned closer to look at a title, he leaned too. It felt like walking beside a reflection that was half a second delayed. I noticed he already knew which sections I would head toward. Fiction first, then essays, then the random clearance shelf near the back. He didn't suggest anything. He just followed, nodding like this was going according to plan. When we sat down again, I started paying closer attention. Every story I told, he already knew the ending. Not because I had told him before, but because he guided me there. He would mention details I hadn't said yet, then watch to see if I corrected him. He never looked surprised when I did. Halfway through the date, he admitted something. Not abruptly, not dramatically, just like it was a normal thing to share. He told me he had seen my profile once months ago and couldn't stop thinking about it. He told me he didn't swipe right then. He said he wanted to be ready first. That word made my chest feel tight. Ready. He explained that after seeing me that first time, he started paying attention. Not following me, not watching me in person. Just noticing patterns. How often my profile disappeared and came back. When my photos changed. When my bio shifted slightly. He said it told him things about my mood, my routines, my phases. He said he practiced. He practiced conversations in his head. Practiced how I might answer certain questions. Practiced how long to pause, when to smile, when to look away. He said he didn't want to mess it up when we finally matched. I felt dizzy. The cafe noise faded into something far away. I realized then why everything felt so smooth, why nothing surprised him. This was the first date for him. It was a performance he had been running through for months. He said he even practiced reactions, different versions depending on how I responded. He said he learned quickly which one worked best on me. I asked how he knew so much. He said people give themselves away online without realizing it. Captions, likes, timing. He said he read between the lines. That word again, read. It stuck in my head because it felt too intentional. I stood up and said I needed air. He stood up too, immediately, like that was part of the script. Outside, the street was busy with people passing, cars honking, life moving normally. I felt disconnected from all of it. He followed me a few steps behind. Not close enough to be threatening. Not far enough to feel like space. He told me he didn't mean to scare me. He said he just wanted me to know how much effort he had put in. That was worse. Effort implies intention, planning, time. I asked if he had done this before. He paused before answering, just long enough to think. He said every connection deserved preparation. I realized then that he wasn't nervous at all. He wasn't worried I would leave. He was scrambling to save the date. He was observing how this version played out. I told him I was comfortable and I wanted to go home. He nodded immediately. No argument. No guilt. No pushback, like he had anticipated that outcome too. As we walked back toward the main street, he started finishing my sentences again, softer this time, like reassurance. I stopped mid-thought and stared at him. He smiled like he had won something. He said he liked seeing when people broke pattern. He said it told him which parts were real. I left without saying goodbye. I didn't look back. My legs felt shaky the whole walk home. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about how long he had been rehearsing a version of me. How many conversations he had already had with a copy that existed only in his head. How many times he had adjusted the script based on nothing but guesses and online traces. The next day, I checked Tinder. His profile was gone. Unmatched. Erased. For a second, I felt relief. Then my phone buzzed. New match. Same photos, same face, different name. The bio was shorter now, more confident. Tweaked just enough to feel familiar but sharper, like version 2. I didn't open it. I deleted the app immediately. A week later, I ran into him at a bus stop near campus. He didn't approach me. He didn't wave. He stood there scrolling on his phone, calm, patient. When I walked past, he glanced up and smiled like he already knew how I would react. I took a different route home. Sometimes I still catch myself mid-sentence and stop short, wondering if someone else is finishing it somewhere, rehearsing, adjusting, waiting for the moment it lines up. I knew the night was off before anything actually went wrong, which somehow made it worse. It was one of those dates where nothing bad happens on the surface, but your body keeps sending little warning pings that your brain keeps swiping away. I remember thinking that if I could just get through the first hour, everything would settle. It didn't. We matched late one night when I was half focused on homework and half scrolling out of habit. Her profile looked organized in a way that felt intentional. Clean photos, neat captions, nothing chaotic. I remember thinking she probably had her life together more than I did, which felt refreshing at the time. Our messages were efficient. Not cold, but direct. She didn't waste words. She asked clear questions and expected clear answers. It felt like talking to someone who didn't like confusion. I told myself that was a good thing. We met at a quiet wine bar tucked between two closed shops. The place had soft lighting and long wooden tables, the kind of spot where voices automatically dropped lower. She was already there when I arrived, sitting straight, hands folded around her glass. She smiled and nodded when she saw me, like she had been expecting me at that exact second. The first part of the date was fine. Not amazing, not awkward. We talked about school, work, the area we both live in. She listened closely, eyes steady, barely interrupting. When I joked, she smiled, but it never quite reached her eyes. I noticed she checked the time a few times, subtle but consistent. About halfway through, she asked me what I thought made a good first impression. The question felt heavier than it should have. I answered honestly, talking about comfort, humor, feeling safe around someone. She nodded slowly, like she was filing the answer away. Then she told me she didn't believe in second chances. She didn't say it dramatically. She didn't lean in or lower her voice. She just stated it like a fact about herself, the way someone says they don't like spicy food. She said first dates showed who people really were. She said anything after that was just adjustment. I laughed a little, thinking she was being intense on purpose. She didn't laugh back. She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. She asked if I wanted to see something. I hesitated, but curiosity won. She opened a note app and turned the screen toward me. It was a list. Names. Lots of them. First names only, some with last initials. Next to each name was a date. Next to the date was a short note. Sometimes just a word. Sometimes a sentence. Too quiet. Talked too much. Asked about past too early. Checked phone constantly. Interrupted. Didn't listen. Wrong energy. My chest tightened as I scrolled. The list kept going. Months back, years back. I stopped counting after 30. She told me these were men who failed the first date test. That word again. Test. She explained that she kept track to avoid patterns. She said memory was unreliable. She said writing things down helped her stay objective. She said it was important not to forget red flags just because time passed. I asked what happened to them after. She shrugged. She said nothing happened. She just never saw them again. She said that was the point. I asked if anyone had ever passed. She scrolled up. There were fewer names at the top, some marked with a different symbol. She said those were the ones who made it to a second date, some even a third. None went further. I didn't know what to say. My stomach felt hollow. I started wondering what she had already written about me, what words were forming in her head while I talked. She noticed my silence and told me not to worry. She said the test wasn't over yet. She said I was doing fine so far. That sentence made my skin crawl. From that moment on, everything felt different. Every movement felt watched. Every word felt weighed. When I reached for my glass, I wondered if it was too fast or too slow. When I smiled, I wondered if it looked forced. She started asking more pointed questions. Not aggressive, but specific. How do I react when someone cancels plans? What annoys me fastest? How I handle being told no. I answered carefully, trying to stay honest without saying anything that might land wrong. She nodded after each answer, occasionally tapping something into her phone. I tried not to look, but I couldn't help it. I caught glimpses of text appearing. I asked what she was writing. She told me she liked to record impressions while they were fresh. She said waiting until later let emotions blur details. She said this way was cleaner. I felt like I was sitting across from someone filling out a report on me. The bar grew quieter as the night went on. A couple left. Chairs scraped softly. The server wiped down the counter nearby. I felt trapped by the calm of it all. At one point, she asked if I noticed anything different about her compared to her profile. The question felt like bait. I answered cautiously, saying she seemed more serious in person. She smiled slightly and typed something else. I finally asked why she was telling me all this. Why show me the list at all? She said transparency mattered. She said she wanted me to know the rules. She said it wasn't fair to judge people without letting them understand the criteria. Criteria. I glanced back at the list. One name near the middle caught my eye. It looked familiar. I realized with a jolt that it was the name of someone I vaguely knew from a class last year. I remembered him mentioning a bad date once, joking about how weird it was. I asked about him. She said she remembered. She said he smiled too much when nervous. She said it felt dishonest. I felt sick. I told her I needed some air. She nodded and said that was understandable. She said stress responses were important data. Outside, the street was quiet. I leaned against the wall, breathing hard, trying to get my head straight. I considered leaving without saying anything, but something about that felt like failing in the worst way possible. When I went back inside, she was already packing up. She said the date was done. She said she had enough to decide. I asked if I passed. She paused, just long enough to think. She said she would review her notes later. She said first impressions sometimes needed a second look, even if she didn't believe in second chances. That contradiction stuck with me. We walked out together. She hugged me briefly, stiff, like it was procedural. She said she would let me know. I didn't hear from her for 2 days. I tried not to think about it, but every quiet moment brought the list back into my head. The names, the notes, the way she watched me. On the third day, I got a message. She thanked me for my time. She said she didn't feel aligned enough to continue. She said she wished me luck. That was it. No explanation, no feedback, just a clean ending. Later that night, curiosity got the better of me. I reopened Tinder, half hoping to see her profile gone. It was still there. Updated, new photos, same calm smile. I realized then that somewhere my name had probably been added to that list. A date, a note, a summary of me reduced to a few words. The thought made my chest tighten. Weeks later, I ran into the guy from my class again. I almost didn't say anything, but I asked if he had ever gone out with someone who kept notes on dates. His face went pale instantly. He asked how I knew. He told me she had shown him the list too. He told me his name was still there. He told me he sometimes wondered what she wrote about him. I don't swipe the same way anymore. I don't trust clean profiles or efficient messages. I think about how easily people can turn moments into records, impressions into verdicts. Somewhere out there, there's a list with my name on it. I don't know what the note says, and I don't think I want to. The night started with one of those small choices that feels meaningless until later, like deciding which chair to sit in or whether to bring a jacket. If I could rewind anything, it would be the second I placed my phone face down on the table and slid it a little closer to the center just to be polite. Nothing bad had happened yet. The air was warm, the restaurant was loud, and I was still in that early date headspace where you assume things will either be boring or fine. Never whatever this turned into. We matched a few days earlier. His profile was clean, almost empty. Not mysterious in a dramatic way, just minimal. One photo of him smiling in bad lighting, one outside somewhere green. His bio said he liked uninterrupted conversations. I remember thinking that sounded refreshing, like a break from people who can't look up from their screens for more than 10 seconds. Our messages were steady. He didn't flood me, did disappear. He asked questions that felt thoughtful but not invasive. When he suggested dinner, he picked a place a little nicer than I expected, not fancy, just quiet and dim. I took that as effort. When I got there, he was already seated. He stood when he saw me, pulled my chair out, smiled like this mattered to him. I relaxed a bit. The restaurant had low ceilings and dark wood walls, the kind of place where voices blur together and time feels slower. Candles on the tables, soft music, nothing alarming. We ordered and started talking. Normal stuff. Work, places we grew up, random opinions. He listened closely, nodding, not interrupting. Every once in a while he glanced at my phone when it buzzed, then looked back at me quickly like he caught himself. About 10 minutes in, he asked if I would mind leaving my phone on the table during dinner. He didn't say it like a demand, more like a suggestion. He said he liked being present. He said phones changed the energy of a conversation. He smiled when he said it, like it was a shared preference, not a rule. I hesitated for half a second. Then I told myself I was overthinking it. People say stuff like that all the time. I placed my phone down between us, screen dark, my fingers lingering on it for a second before pulling away. The conversation flowed easily after that, almost too easily. He kept circling back to things I had mentioned earlier, remembering details. He asked follow-up questions that made me feel seen. I caught myself thinking this was one of the better first dates I had been on in a while. Then I felt my phone vibrate. I glanced down instinctively, but didn't pick it up. He noticed. He smiled slightly, like he'd won a small game. I ignored it and kept talking. A few minutes later, it vibrated again. Stronger this time. I reached for it without thinking. The screen lit up, but it didn't unlock. I frowned and tried again. Nothing. The screen stayed on the lock page, asking for a code I didn't recognize. Not my usual one. Not even the backup. My heart skipped. I laughed it off, saying my phone was acting weird. I tried again, slower. Same thing. That's when he smiled. Not friendly, not awkward, just calm, like he had been waiting for this exact moment. He told me to relax. He said it happens sometimes. He said phones glitch when they haven't been updated. He said we could deal with it after dinner. My hands were shaking slightly. I tried to keep my voice steady, but panic crept in fast. I told him I needed my phone. I told him I had to check something important. He leaned back in his chair and said we were already here. He said nothing bad would happen in an hour. He said this was why he liked leaving phones alone, because it showed who people really were when they couldn't reach for an exit. Exit. That word echoed in my head. I tried unlocking the phone again. Then I tried turning it off. It wouldn't respond. The screen stayed lit, unchanging, like it wasn't really mine anymore. I asked what he did. He didn't deny anything. He just said he had prepared. He said most people never expected. He said phones were the first thing people reached for when they felt uncomfortable, and taking that away made things more honest. I pushed my chair back slightly. He noticed immediately. His posture didn't change, but his eyes tracked the movement. He reminded me that the restaurant was busy, that nothing bad was happening, that I was safe. Safe. I told him I wanted to leave. I told him to give my phone back. He told me it was still there, right in front of me. He said I could see it, touch it, feel it. He said that didn't mean I controlled it. The food arrived then like the universe was mocking me. Plates set down carefully, steam rising, everything normal. The server smiled and walked away without a second glance. I realized how invisible this was to everyone else. He started talking again like nothing was wrong. He asked me questions about fear, about what makes people feel trapped, about whether I trusted systems or instincts more. He spoke calmly, almost gently, like this was a study, not a threat. I tried standing up. My legs felt weak, but I managed. He didn't move. He just watched me and said my phone would unlock outside the building anyway. He said he had said it that way. I froze. My mind raced. I thought about running, about screaming, about grabbing the phone and throwing it. But my body wouldn't cooperate. The room felt heavy. My thoughts slowed. I sat back down. He nodded, satisfied, like I had just confirmed something for him. I don't remember everything he said after that. Pieces blurred together. Something about control. Something about how easily people hand over access when they think they're being polite. Something about how many times he had practiced this, adjusted it, refined it. I watched the candle flame flicker on the table and focused on breathing. I told myself I just had to get through dinner. Eventually, he stood up and said we should go. He picked up my phone and held it out to me. My heart jumped. I reached for it, and this time it unlocked instantly. My normal screen. My normal code. Like nothing had happened. He told me to have a good night and walked away without looking back. I sat there for a long time after that. The server came over and asked if everything was okay. I nodded and paid. My hands were still shaking. Outside, I turned my phone off completely. I walked home without checking it. When I finally did later, there were no signs anything had changed. No new apps, no alerts, nothing. That scared me more than if something had been obvious. I deleted Tinder that night. I changed settings. I told friends what happened, but it sounded unreal even as I said it, like I was exaggerating. Sometimes when my phone lags or freezes, my chest tightens. Sometimes I leave it in another room on purpose, just to prove I still can. I think about how easy it was, how I agreed without thinking, how he smiled when I realized I had lost control. And I still don't know what else he changed while it was sitting there, unlocked in ways I couldn't see. I knew something was wrong the second she said my name, and it wasn't mine. It wasn't loud or dramatic, just casual, like she had slipped and expected me not to notice. At first, I thought I misheard her. Apartments echo. Brains fill gaps. That's what I told myself while my stomach started tightening for no clear reason. We had matched earlier that week, late at night, the kind of match that happens when both people are half bored and half curious. Her profile mentioned being into role play, but not in a flashy way. It was buried in the bio, almost an afterthought. I didn't think much of it. People say all kinds of things on apps that don't mean much in real life. Our messages were easy, playful but grounded. She joked about how awkward first dates can be, how expectations ruin things, how she preferred things to unfold naturally. She suggested we meet for drinks first, which felt safe. We picked a bar near her place, nothing fancy, just loud enough to blur conversations. She showed up wearing a jacket that looked too big for her, sleeves hanging past her wrists. She smiled when she saw me and leaned in like we already knew each other. The date went fine. Not amazing, not bad. We talked about work, music, the places we grew up. She mentioned an ex once, briefly, like a fact she had already processed. I didn't ask questions. After the second drink, she suggested going back to her apartment to hang out. I hesitated for a moment, then said yes. Nothing about her felt dangerous, just slightly intense in a way I couldn't put my finger on yet. The walk to her place was quiet. She walked close, bumping my arm every few steps. Her building was older, brick outside, narrow stairs inside. When we got to her door, she paused, looked at me like she was checking something, then unlocked it. Inside, the place was dim and warm, lamps instead of overhead lights. Furniture pushed close together. It felt lived in, not staged. There were framed photos on the walls, but I didn't look closely at them yet. She took her jacket off and hung it carefully, smoothing it like she cared how it looked even off her body. She said my name again. Or she tried to. This time I heard it clearly, and it definitely wasn't mine. I laughed awkwardly and corrected her, thinking it was just nerves. She smiled and nodded. When she spoke again, she used the wrong name again. Same one. Said casually, naturally, like it fit perfectly. My chest tightened. I told her again. She frowned slightly, like I was the one messing up. She said she thought I liked role play. That was the first time the word felt wrong. I told her that was what I meant, that I wasn't comfortable with being called someone else's name. She nodded and said okay, and walked past me into the living room. I followed, unsure what to do next. She sat down on the couch and patted the space next to her. When I sat, she leaned her head on my shoulder and said the name again, softer this time. The wrong one. Like a habit she couldn't break. I pulled away gently and asked who that was. She froze for half a second. Then she laughed lightly and said it was nothing. Just a slip. She said she had been thinking about old memories earlier. She said names get stuck sometimes. But she didn't stop. Every time she addressed me, it was that name. Not mine, not even close. I corrected her twice more, each time feeling more awkward, more tense. She apologized each time, but her eyes didn't match her words. She looked focused, almost relieved, like she had been waiting to use it out loud. I stood up and said I should probably go. My heart was beating too fast. The room felt smaller than it had when I first walked in. She stood up too, moving quickly, blocking the path toward the door without touching me. She told me it was overthinking it. She told me it was just part of the vibe. She said I reminded her of him so much it was hard not to slip. That sentence made my skin crawl. I asked who he was. She gestured around the apartment. She said he was everywhere. She said it helped to keep things the same. I finally looked at the photos on the wall. They weren't random. They were all of the same guy. Different angles, different years. Him smiling, him looking tired, him sitting on the same couch I was standing in front of. Some photos were newer, some older. The frames were arranged carefully like a timeline. I asked where he was now. She said it didn't work out. She said people leave, but patterns don't have to. I felt sick. She said she liked to rehearse conversations the way they used to be. She said it made things feel stable again. She said calling me by his name helped her keep the flow right. I told her I was him. I told her I didn't want to be part of this. She tilted her head and looked at me closely. She said she knew. She said that's why it worked. She said I was him, but I was close enough that her brain could fill in the rest. I noticed then that the apartment wasn't just decorated with photos. There were other things. Clothes folded neatly in a drawer she left open. Shoes by the door that looked worn but clean. Items that didn't feel like hers. She told me she had dated other guys since him. She said most of them didn't last long. She said some leaned into it too much, and that ruined it. She said others fought it, and that made her sad. She said I was doing better than most. That was not comforting. I tried to step past her toward the door. She moved aside this time, slowly, like she was letting me go on purpose. But as I reached for the handle, she said the name again, louder, sharper. It felt like a hook in my chest. I turned around without meaning to. She smiled. She said it was hard to stop once she started. She said hearing it out loud made everything line up. She said she had been waiting all night. I told her to stop. I told her to call me by my name. She shook her head slowly. She said it didn't feel right anymore. I opened the door and stepped into the hallway. The air outside felt colder, heavier. My hands were shaking so badly I had to shove them into my pockets. She didn't follow me. She didn't call after me. She just stood there in the doorway, watching, smiling softly, like she had gotten what she wanted anyway. I walked down the stairs too fast, nearly missing steps. I didn't stop until I was outside, breathing hard, heart racing. On the walk home, my phone buzzed. A message from her. She apologized for things getting weird. She said she didn't mean to scare me. She said sometimes names slip when feelings get strong. I didn't reply. Another message came in a few minutes later. This one used the wrong name again. I blocked her number, unmatched her, deleted the app. I thought that would be the end of it. A week later, I was at a grocery store near my place when I heard the name again. Not shouted, just spoken nearby. My whole body went tense. I turned and saw her at the end of the aisle talking to someone else. A guy about my height, similar build. She said the name again and laughed. He smiled back, confused but flattered. I left my cart and walked out without buying anything. Sometimes I think about that apartment, about how carefully everything was arranged, about how many people had sat on that couch and been called someone else, about how easy it would be to step into a role you didn't know you were auditioning for. I still check names more closely now. I pay attention when someone hesitates before saying mine. I don't ignore that tight feeling in my chest anymore. Somewhere out there, she's still calling someone by a name that doesn't belong to them. And I wonder how long it takes before they stop correcting her. The first thing I noticed when I woke up was my phone buzzing like it had something urgent to say, which already felt wrong because nothing in my life ever feels urgent at 8 in the morning. My room was still dark, curtains half closed, my brain foggy in that way where you don't fully know who you are yet. I grabbed my phone, expecting a random notification or maybe an alarm. I forgot to turn it off. Instead, Tinder was open. Not just open, glowing, bright blue star, super-like. For a second I thought I was still half dreaming. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, tilted the screen. The notification was real. It said I had received a super-like from my own profile. I sat up so fast my head spun. My blanket slid to the floor. My heart started pounding before my brain even caught up. I stared at the screen, waiting for it to correct itself, waiting for the name to change, waiting for anything to make sense. It didn't. The profile photo was me. Same main picture I had been using for months. Same lighting. Same shirt. The bio underneath was word for word what I had written, including the dumb joke at the end that kept meaning to change. The distance said less than 1 mile. Active recently. I had super liked myself. I knew immediately it had something to do with him. The night before had been weird in a quiet way. Not dramatic. Not obviously bad. Just off enough that I had gone home feeling heavier than usual. We matched earlier that week and met for drinks at a rooftop place downtown. The kind with string lights and plastic plants pretending to be fancy. He looked exactly like his photos, which already put him ahead of most people. The date wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible either. Conversation flowed, but there was something rehearsed about it, like he was hitting beats instead of reacting. He laughed when he was supposed to, nodded when I talked, asked questions that felt slightly delayed. I remember noticing he watched my phone more than my face. Every time I picked it up, his eyes flicked down for half a second, then back up. I thought maybe he was just awkward. When the date ended, he hugged me and said he had a good time. I went home feeling unsure, but not unsafe. Later that night, I opened Tinder out of habit. He had unmatched me. That stunned more than I expected, mostly because it felt sudden. No goodbye, no message, just gone. I shrugged it off and told myself it wasn't a big deal. People do that. I went to sleep thinking that was the end of it. Now here I was, sitting in my bed, staring at my own face telling me I had been super liked. I opened the profile fully. It loaded instantly, smooth as ever. When I scrolled, I noticed something new. An extra photo at the end of the lineup. One I didn't recognize right away. It was a photo of me from behind, standing at the bar the night before. Same jacket, same posture, taken from across the room. My chest went tight. I definitely had not taken that photo. No one had tagged me. No one had sent it to me. It wasn't on my phone. I checked my actual profile by going into edit mode. My photos were normal. The extra one was there. I backed out and opened the super-like profile again. The photo was still there. 2 versions of me. One I controlled, one I didn't. I locked my phone and unlocked it again, hoping the app would refresh. The profile stayed. Active recently. My phone buzzed again. New match. I almost threw the phone across the room. Instead, I opened it slowly, bracing myself. It was him. Same profile. Same name, same photos. Matched with my duplicate profile. My throat went dry. I checked the chat preview. There was already a message waiting. Not for me, for the other me. I didn't open it. I didn't want to know what it said. I went into settings and tried to log out of Tinder completely. It froze for a second, then logged me out. Relief washed over me until I realized something worse. The duplicate profile was still there. I logged back in. My account looked normal. No new matches, no new messages, nothing out of place. Except when I swiped. 2 profiles down, I saw myself. Not a mirror selfie, not a reflection. A full profile card. My name but spelled slightly wrong. 1 letter off. The bio rewritten just enough to sound like me, but sharper, more confident, more flirty than I actually am. I felt sick. I closed the app and opened it again. The profile was gone. My phone buzzed. Super-like. From me again. This time, when I opened it, the extra photo had changed. It was me walking home at night, streetlights blurred, taken from behind. I recognized the street immediately. It was the one near my place. I stopped walking there for a few seconds, trying to breathe. I realized then that this wasn't just about the app. It was about access. I thought back to the date, how he had asked about my phone casually, what model it was, whether I liked it, whether I used Face Unlock or a code. I had answered without thinking. I thought it was small talk. It wasn't. I reported the profile. I attached screenshots. I explained everything in the text box, my hands shaking as I typed. The response came fast, but empty. Profiles impersonating others violate rules. They would investigate. Thank you for reporting. The duplicate profile stayed active. Over the next few hours, I watched it change. The bio updated. Photos rotated. Sometimes it used pictures I recognized from my socials. Sometimes ones I had never posted anywhere. Angles I couldn't remember standing still for. People started matching with it. I knew because my phone buzzed with notifications meant for me that weren't actually mine. Confused messages from strangers asking why I unmatched them so fast. Asking if I was real. Asking why my name kept changing. I stopped responding to everything. Around noon, I got another notification. Super-like. This time from a new account. Blank name. No bio. Just 1 photo. It was a screenshot of my real profile. Someone had super-liked my duplicate using my real account. I sat there staring at it, my head buzzing, my hands numb. I tried changing my password. Then again. Then everywhere else. Email. Socials. Cloud storage. Nothing stopped the duplicate from moving. By evening, my phone battery was low. I turned it off completely and sat in silence, trying to calm down. I told myself apps glitch. People hack. Things happen. When I turned it back on later, there was one final notification waiting. No super-like. Just a message request. From him. Sent through the duplicate profile. The preview cut off halfway, but I saw enough to know it wasn't meant for me. It was meant for the other version. The one that stayed. I deleted Tinder completely, wiped my phone, reset everything. It took hours. When I finally logged back in days later on a new device, the duplicate was gone. So was he. No trace, no profile, no history. But every now and then, I get a notification that makes my heart jump. A super-like symbol on a different app. A match that feels too fast. A profile that sounds just a little too much like me. I still don't know how he did it. I don't know how much of it was tech and how much was planning. All I know is that somewhere in that system, my profile learned how to act without me. And once in a while, I wonder if it ever really stopped swiping. The question didn't come out of nowhere, but it still landed wrong. It was late enough that the cafe had thinned out. Chairs stacked on tables near the back, lights dimmed just a little too much. My drink was half finished, my thumb face down, my brain in that loose state where you stop filtering as carefully. Everything up to that point had felt normal. Not exciting, not boring, just steady, which is probably why I answered at all. We matched on a night when I was looking for anything heavy. Her profile was calm. No wild captions, no forced jokes. Just photos that looked recent and a bio that mentioned liking quiet places and long talks. We messaged back and forth for a few days, nothing intense. She asked thoughtful questions, remembered things I said. When she suggested meeting, it felt natural. The cafe was tucked between a bookstore and a closed pharmacy, the kind of place that smells like coffee grounds and of old paper. She was already there when I arrived, sitting near the window, notebook beside her cup. I noticed it right away, but didn't think much of it. People write, people plan. I told myself not to read into it. The date flowed easily. We talked about school, work, random habits. She listened closely, nodding, occasionally jotting something down. I assumed she was just the type who liked to remember details. It felt flattering in a low-key way. Then she asked about fears. Not in a joking way. Not as a throwaway question. She asked it like it mattered, like it was the next logical step. I hesitated. I should have dodged it. Should have said something light or vague, but the room felt quiet and safe, and I didn't want to seem guarded for no reason. So I answered honestly. I told her the thing that actually scares me, not spiders or heights or anything easy. I told her about the fear that sits under everything else, the one that doesn't come up unless you're tired or alone too long. I didn't go into detail, but I named it. She didn't react the way I expected. She didn't comfort me, didn't joke, didn't say she related. She picked up her pen and wrote it down. Slowly, deliberately. Then she looked up, smiled, and said it was good. She said that meant this would work. My stomach tightened. I laughed a little, trying to keep it light, but she didn't laugh back. She closed the notebook and slid it closer to her bag like she had just finished a task. I asked what she meant. She said compatibility wasn't about liking the same things. She said it was about knowing where pressure points lined up. She said understanding fear made everything clearer. That should have been my cue to leave. Instead, I stayed. After that, the tone shifted. Not dramatically, just subtly. She started asking questions that circled back to what I had shared. Not repeating it directly, but brushing up against it from different angles. How I reacted when I felt ignored. How I handled uncertainty. How much control mattered to me. Each time, she nodded and sometimes wrote again. I tried to steer the conversation elsewhere, but it kept looping back. I started feeling like I was sitting for some kind of assessment without knowing the criteria. Every answer felt like it could be wrong. At one point, she asked if I trusted people easily. I gave a careful answer. She smiled and said trust was required, just predictability. Predictability. That word stuck with me. The cafe was almost empty by then. The barista wiped down the counter and glanced our way a few times. I noticed how quiet it had gotten, how our table felt isolated even though we were still in public. She finally stood up and said we should go for a walk, said it was easier to talk outside. I agreed, mostly because I wanted to move to change the energy. The street outside was dim and cool. We walked side by side, not touching. She led without saying where we were going. It wasn't far, just around the block, past a small park with broken lights and empty benches. As we walked, she talked about patterns, about how people think they are complex, but repeat themselves under pressure. She said fear was the easiest way to see the real version of someone. I asked why she cared so much. She said she was tired of guessing. She said guessing wasted time. She stopped near the park entrance and looked at me closely, like she was checking alignment. She asked if I remembered what I had told her earlier. I nodded. She said she had dated people who lied about their fears. She said those never worked. She said honesty made things cleaner. I felt exposed, like I had handed over something I couldn't take back. We kept walking. She started telling me about past dates, but not in a complaining way. More like data points. People who reacted too strongly. People who shut down. People who pushed back. She talked about them like case studies, not memories. I asked where those people were now. She said she didn't keep in touch. She said there was no need once the conclusion was reached. The word conclusion made my chest tighten. When we got back to the cafe, she said she had to grab something from her bag. She opened it and pulled out the notebook again. This time, she flipped through a few pages. I caught glimpses of handwriting, different entries, dates, single words, short phrases. I didn't recognize the names, but there were a lot of them. She noticed me looking and didn't hide it. She said she liked keeping track. She said memory was unreliable when emotions got involved. She said writing things down kept her grounded. She asked if I wanted to see my entry. I said no. She shrugged and closed the notebook again, unfazed. She said it was early anyway. She said first impressions take time to solidify. That sentence made my skin crawl. We said goodbye outside. The hug was brief and stiff. She told me she would be in touch. Her tone made it sound decided, not hopeful. On the walk home, I replayed everything. The way she smiled when I answered. The way she wrote it down. The way she said it would work. I tried to tell myself I was overreacting, that some people are just intense and analytical. My phone buzzed before I got home. A message from her. She said she'd been thinking about what I shared. She said it helped clarify things. She said she appreciated my honesty. Then she sent a photo. It was a page from the notebook. My fear written at the top. Underneath it, bullet points. Triggers, responses, notes. My hand started shaking. I had never told her most of what was written there. Some of it was close enough to feel like guesswork. Some of it felt too accurate to be coincidence. I didn't reply. Another message came in a few minutes later. She said she hoped I wasn't uncomfortable. She said this was how she built trust. She said understanding fear made connection stronger. I blocked her. I deleted Tinder. I changed my settings. I told myself it was done. 2 days later, I ran into her at a grocery store near my place. She didn't approach me. She just smiled from the end of the aisle and nodded like we shared something private. My phone buzzed as I stood there frozen. Unknown number. The message referenced my fear. Not directly, but enough that I knew it was intentional. She said growth comes from facing things, not avoiding them. She said she was glad I had been honest. I didn't respond. Over the next week, things started happening that felt too aligned. Small situations that brushed against the fear I had named. Nothing extreme. Just enough to make my chest tighten. Just enough to feel deliberate. I don't know if she caused them or if my brain started seeing patterns everywhere. I don't know which is worse. I never heard from her again after that week. No messages, no sightings, nothing. But I think about that notebook a lot, about how easily she wrote it down, about how relieved she looked when I answered, about how she said it would work. I don't answer that question anymore, no matter who asks, not on dates, not as a joke, not late at night when things feel soft. Somewhere out there, there's a page with my fear written at the top, and I don't know what she's measuring against it now. The night didn't feel dangerous until it felt irreversible. That's the part I keep circling back to. There was no jump scare moment, no sudden shift in tone, just a slow tightening like a knot being pulled one loop at a time. If I had walked away earlier, it would have been forgettable, awkward at worst, Instead, it turned into something that still messes with how I hear my own voice. We matched on a boring weekday night. His profile felt controlled in a way that was easy to mistake for calm. Clean photos, short bio, nothing emotional, nothing messy. He wrote that he valued honesty more than anything, which I know now is always a warning sign when someone puts it that plainly. Our messages were smooth, not flirty, not dry, just balanced. He asked questions that felt intentional but not invasive. When we planned to meet, he picked a quiet place that stayed open late, a small place near a river walk that had outdoor heaters and low music, public enough to feel safe, quiet enough to talk. When I got there, he was already seated, phone face down, hands folded on the table. He smiled when he saw me and stood up. Everything about him felt measured, like he had practiced being relaxed. The conversation started light. School, work, small annoyances. He nodded a lot, remembered details, never interrupted. Every time I spoke, he leaned in slightly, like listening was a skill he had trained. I remember thinking it felt nice not having to repeat myself. About halfway through, he brought up lying. Not accusingly, just casually. He said he hated lies more than anything. Said even small ones ruined trust. Said people didn't realize how often they contradicted themselves. I agreed in a vague way. Who doesn't? He asked if I thought people always knew when they were lying. I said sometimes yes, sometimes no. I said memory messes with things. Context shifts. People remember events differently. He smiled and said that was interesting. I didn't notice him tap his phone until later. Not typing. Just tapping once, like marking a moment. We finished our drinks and walked along the path near the water. Lights reflected off the surface in broken lines. It felt calm. Normal. He asked more questions, some deeper, some random. Nothing that set off alarms. I answered honestly, not overthinking. We ended up sitting on a bench away from most people. The night air felt cool but not cold. I was relaxed enough that I didn't notice how quiet it had gotten. That's when he pulled his phone out. He told me he wanted to show me something, said it would explain what he meant earlier. Before I could respond, he hit play. It was my voice. At first, I didn't understand what I was hearing. It took a few seconds for my brain to catch up. The audio was familiar in a way that made my stomach drop. The rhythm, the pauses, the small laugh at the end of sentences. It was me talking. But it wasn't right. The words were ones I had said earlier, but stitched together wrong. Gaps removed. Pauses shortened. Tone shifted just enough that it sounded defensive. Guilty, like I was backtracking. My chest tightened so hard it hurt. He said it was a recording from earlier, from when we were sitting at the table. He said he liked to keep records so people couldn't rewrite history later. He said audio didn't lie. I told him that wasn't what I had said. I told him the tone was wrong. He nodded and said tone was subjective. He scrubbed the audio back and played another part. Again, my voice. Again, edited. Questions cut out. Responses clipped. Suddenly, it sounded like I was avoiding something instead of answering openly. I felt dizzy. I tried to stand up, but my legs felt heavy. He didn't touch me. Didn't block me. He just kept the phone angled so I could hear clearly. He asked if I noticed how different it sounded. He asked if I understood how easy it was for truth to change shape. I told him to stop. He didn't argue. He just paused the audio and looked at me, studying my face like this was the part he had been waiting for. He said this was why he hated lies, because people didn't even realize when they were telling them. He said hearing yourself exposed made it easier to accept reality. I asked when he had recorded me. He said from the moment we sat down. He said it was legal in most places. He said phones were always listening anyway. I grabbed my bag and stood up, this time forcing my legs to work. I told him I was leaving. He stayed seated, calm. He said I could go whenever I wanted. He said the recording was going anywhere. That stopped me. He explained gently that audio could be shared, that once something existed, it could be interpreted in many ways. He said he was threatening me. He said he just wanted honesty between us. I felt sick. My hands were shaking. I asked him to delete it. He smiled slightly and said he would consider it. I walked away without waiting for more. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear my own footsteps. I didn't run, but I didn't slow down either. I didn't look back. When I got home, I locked the door and sat on the floor, trying to steady my breathing. I replayed the night in my head, trying to remember every word I had said, every pause, every laugh. I started doubting myself, wondering if maybe I had sounded defensive. Maybe I had contradicted myself without realizing. That thought scared me more than the recording. My phone buzzed. A message from him. He said he hoped I got home safe. He said he understood why I left. He said emotions run high when people hear themselves clearly for the first time. Attached was a file. I didn't open it. Another message came a minute later. He said he had cleaned it up further, removed background noise, adjusted pacing, said it was clearer now. I blocked him. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard my own voice, twisted just enough to sound wrong. I kept replaying conversations from the past, wondering how they might sound if someone else controlled the playback. The next morning, I checked my phone out of habit. There were no new messages, but the damage was already there. I felt disconnected from my own memory, like it could be edited without me noticing. Later that week, I had a message from an unknown number. It was an audio clip. This one was shorter, just a few seconds. My voice saying something harmless from the date, but cut and looped so it sounded suspicious, like a confession without context. My stomach dropped. I didn't respond. I blocked the number. Another one messaged an hour later. Same clip, slightly altered. I changed my number after that, deleted apps, tightened settings, but the feeling didn't go away. Sometimes when I talk now, I hear myself from the outside. I hesitate before finishing sentences. I avoid long explanations. I keep things short, clean, hard to cut apart. I think about how confident he sounded when he said audio didn't lie, how calm he was while playing back a version of me that didn't exist until he made it. Somewhere out there, there's a file of my voice shaped into something I don't recognize. And no matter how many times I tell myself I know what I said, a small part of me wonders how it would sound if someone else pressed play. The worst part was that she lied. It was how confident she was that I wouldn't notice until it was too late. I didn't walk into that night expecting anything strange. I was more annoyed than excited, mostly because double dates always feel awkward by default. Too many moving parts, too much pressure to perform. When she suggested it, I almost said no, but she framed it like a fun change, like less pressure, more people, more noise to hide behind. That sounded safe enough. We matched a few days earlier. Her profile felt bright and casual, lots of laughing photos, nothing dark or intense. She joked a lot in messages, kept things light. She mentioned she had a friend who was also on Tinder and thought it would be funny if we all met up together. She said it would take the edge off. I agreed without thinking too hard. She gave me the place and time. A bar near the edge of downtown that stayed busy on weekends. Neon signs, loud music, sticky floors. The kind of place where nothing serious ever happens. I got there a little early and grabbed a table near the back, where I could see the entrance without feeling on display. I checked my phone. No messages yet. That didn't worry me. People were late. I told myself to relax. 10 minutes passed, then 15. I watched groups come and go, couples laughing, friends leaning close to hear each other. I felt that familiar awkwardness creep in, the one where you wonder if you're about to be stood up, but don't want to jump to conclusions. Then my phone buzzed. A message from her saying they were almost there. She said they had to park a little farther away. I felt relieved. I ordered a drink and waited. Another 5 minutes. Another buzz. This time it wasn't her. It was a Tinder notification. New message. From her profile. That confused me. We were already chatting. I opened it anyway. The message was casual, like nothing was strange, asking if I was already inside. I frowned and replied yes. As soon as I sent it, my phone buzzed again. Another Tinder notification. Different profile. Same face. Same photos, but rearranged. Different bio. Different name. Still her. My stomach dropped. I stared at the screen, trying to process what I was seeing. 2 profiles, both active, both typing, both showing the same location, less than 1 mile away. Before I could respond, both chats, updated, both asking where I was sitting. I scanned the bar instinctively, expecting to see 2 identical people walking side by side. No one looked like her. No one was even close. I asked what was going on. I typed carefully, unsure which chat to use. Both profiles responded almost immediately, reassuring, playful, telling me not to stress. One of them said they were grabbing drinks at the bar already. I looked up fast. The bar was crowded, but I didn't see her. I stood up slightly to get a better view, heart pounding. Another message came in. The other profile said she was outside finishing a call. My chest felt tight. This wasn't funny. This wasn't a glitch. This felt deliberate. I asked if this was a joke. Both profiles sent laughing reactions. Then one of them unmatched me. The other stayed. My phone buzzed again. New match. Same face. Third profile. I felt dizzy. My hands were shaking as I tried to keep up with what was happening on the screen. The messages overlapped, came in too fast. Each profile had a slightly different tone. One more teasing, one more calm, one more sharp. It felt like I was being split apart, pulled in 3 directions by the same person wearing different masks. I stood up fully this time, scanning the room again. I caught sight of a woman near the jukebox who looked a little like her from behind, but when she turned, it wasn't her. Every face started to blur together. One of the profiles told me to sit back down, said they could see me standing. That made my heart race. I sat. Another profile said this was the part where most guys got uncomfortable. Another said I was doing fine. I realized then that the double date never existed. There was no friend, no second couple. It was always just me. I asked why she was doing this. The remaining profile replied slowly, like choosing words carefully. She said people behave differently when they think they're being watched by more than one person. She said it was easier to see who someone really was when they didn't know which version mattered. I didn't understand what she meant, but I didn't like the way it sounded. She said she liked to run comparisons, said it helped her decide which energy fit best. I felt sick. I thought about all the things I had said already, the way I had shifted from relaxed to tense to confused. I wondered which version she was paying attention to. I grabbed my jacket and stood up again. I didn't care if she saw me. I wanted out. My phone buzzed. One profile said leading would count as a reaction. Another said it would be a shame to stop early. I walked toward the exit anyway, my heart pounding in my ears. Halfway there, my phone buzzed again. Super-like. From my own profile. I froze. I opened it, even though every part of me screamed not to. There it was, my face, my photos, my bio, but slightly rewritten. More confident, more bold, someone I barely recognized. It had super-liked one of her profiles. She had made me part of it. I felt exposed, like I was standing naked in the middle of the bar and no one else could see it. I shoved my phone in my pocket and walked out into the cold night air, breathing hard. Outside, I leaned against the wall and tried to steady myself. My phone buzzed again, then again, then again. Messages stacked up from different profiles. All her. All watching. All commenting on what I was doing. How fast I walked. How I checked over my shoulder. How long I stood still. I blocked one. Another appeared. I blocked that one too. Another replaced it. I turned my phone off completely. The walk home felt unreal. Every step felt watched even without the screen lit up. When I got inside my apartment, I locked the door and slid down against it, heart racing. I turned my phone back on an hour later. No new notifications. Relief washed over me until I opened Tinder again. Her profiles were gone. All of them. No trace. For a moment, I wondered if I imagined everything. Stressed as weird things. Apps glitch. People joke. Then I saw my profile. Still active. Still updated. Still showing recent activity even though I hadn't touched it. My bio had changed again. A line added that I didn't write. Something playful, something that sounded like her. I deleted the app immediately. The next day, a friend messaged me asking why I had matched with her late last night under a different name. She sent a screenshot. My face. Different name. I didn't reply. I wiped my phone, changed passwords, stopped using dating apps altogether. Sometimes I still think about that night, about sitting alone at a table meant for 4 people who never existed, about how easily she split herself into pieces and pulled me apart with her. Somewhere out there, she's probably still inviting people to double dates, still watching which version of herself they react to, still deciding who gets to stay. The notification didn't scare me at first. It just confused me, which almost made it worse. I was already half asleep, phone face down on my bed, brain drifting in that quiet space where everything feels distant. When the buzz hit, I assumed it was nothing important. Group chat, spam, some app begging for attention. I rolled over and checked it without thinking. Tinder said I had matched again. That alone didn't make sense. I had blocked him an hour earlier. Not unmatched, blocked. I remember doing it carefully, double-checking, feeling that small wave of relief when the screen confirmed it. I even deleted the conversation after just to feel done with it. So seeing that notification felt like the app itself had made a mistake. I opened it. The match loaded instantly. The profile picture was a live photo of me. Not a selfie, not a mirror shot. Me sitting on my bed, phone in my hand, lit by the glow of the screen. The angle was wrong, slightly above, slightly to the side, the window behind me clearly visible. My heart stopped. I stared at the screen, waiting for it to change, waiting for the live photo icon to disappear, waiting for anything to make it make sense. It didn't. The image moved slightly, looping the way live photos do. I watched myself blink. I dropped my phone. It hit the bed and bounced, screen still glowing. My whole body felt numb, my ears rang. I could hear my own breathing too loud in the room. Slowly, I picked it back up. The profile name was blank. No bio. No distance listed. Just active now. I locked my phone and looked up at my window. The blinds were half open. I live on the second floor of an old apartment building, the kind with a narrow walkway that runs behind it. I had always hated that walkway, but I told myself it was fine because no one used it at night. It was dark out there, only one flickering light near the stairs. I didn't see anyone. My phone buzzed again in my hand. New message. From the profile. I didn't open it. I couldn't. My hands were shaking too badly. I backed away from the window and pulled the blinds shut hard, the slats rattling loud in the quiet room. I thought about calling someone, but my brain felt slow, like it couldn't choose the right person. Instead, I sat on the floor with my back against the bed, phone clutched to my chest, trying to breathe normally. My phone buzzed again. And again. I forced myself to open the chat. The message was short, casual, like nothing was wrong, like we had just matched for the first time. I scrolled up. There was no history, no previous messages, just that one line waiting for me to respond. I exited the chat and went back to the profile. The photo had changed. This one was clearer. Still live, still me. This time I was standing near the window earlier that evening, pulling the blinds halfway down. I remembered doing that. I remembered thinking the light outside looked creepy. My chest tightened so hard it hurt. I reported the profile immediately. My fingers fumbled as I filled out the form, screenshots stacking up in my camera roll. I wrote everything in the explanation box, words spilling out too fast. I hit submit and waited. The profile stayed. Active now. I blocked it. The app froze for a second, then refreshed. New match. Same photo. Different account. My stomach dropped. I closed Tinder completely and checked my locks. Door locked. Chain on. Windows closed now. I turned off the lights and stood in the dark listening. Every sound felt too loud. The hum of the fridge. Footsteps somewhere outside that could have been anyone. My phone buzzed again. I didn't need to look to know what it was. I turned the phone off completely and sat in silence. Minutes passed, maybe more. Time felt thick. Finally, I turned the phone back on, telling myself I needed proof. I needed to see if it was still there. As soon as it powered up, the notification popped back onto the screen. You've matched again. All lowercase, no explanation. I opened Tinder. This time, the profile had a bio. It was a sentence I recognized immediately because I had written it years ago on a different app. Something vague about liking quiet nights and overthinking everything. I had deleted it back then because it felt too revealing. The photos kept changing as I watched. Different moments. Me brushing my teeth. Me sitting at my desk. Me asleep on my bed, taken from the same angle as the first one. My chest felt hollow. I couldn't tell which photos were real memories and which ones I didn't remember living through. I grabbed my jacket and keys and left my apartment without thinking. I didn't take the stairs near my place. I took the long way around, heart racing, eyes scanning every shadow. Outside, the air felt cold and sharp. I stood under a streetlight and checked Tinder again. The profile was still active. The distance now said less than 1 mile. I walked faster. As I moved, my phone buzzed in my hand. Message after message. The profile commenting on what I was doing. How fast I walked. Which direction I turned. When I stopped under the light. I blocked it again. Another one appeared. I realized then that blocking wasn't stopping anything. It was just letting it reset. I went to a friend's place across town and stayed there that night. I didn't sleep. Every time my phone lit up, my heart jumped. Eventually, I turned it off again and left it face down on the table. In the morning, I checked my messages. No new Tinder notifications. Relief washed over me so hard I almost cried. I opened the app carefully. No matches, no messages, no profiles. It was gone. I told myself it had been a glitch, a sick prank, something explainable if I tried hard enough. That afternoon, my friend asked why I had updated my Tinder photos overnight. My stomach dropped. She showed me her screen. There I was, standing in her guest room, taken while I slept on her couch. Live photo. Active now. I deleted Tinder permanently after that, wiped my phone, changed accounts. I haven't used a dating app since. But sometimes, late at night, I still get notifications from apps I don't even remember installing. Vague ones. No names. Just reminders that something is active nearby. And every time I walk past my window, I check the reflection before I check the glass.